United States of America,
and to
the republic for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Justice for all.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, if you would please call the roll.
Blackledge. Do we have them unmuted? Blackledge? Okay.
Muted.
Boggs? All right, be a hand raised here. Castle?
Here.
Ferrante?
Present.
Frost?
Here,
Jasmine? Hand raised, thank you. Jax? Thank you. Warner?
Here.
Earl? Hand raised, quorum present.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So before we get into some of the housekeeping items tonight, as you can tell, we're meeting remotely in accordance with the governor's executive order and the limitations on the amount of people that can be present in a public place at any one time. So I'd ask for your patience tonight. There will be some challenges, more than likely, meeting like this. We may have to deal with some technical difficulties and things along those lines. So I kindly ask for your patience and understanding with us under these circumstances. So thank you for that. Moving on now down the agenda, we have a full body, so there's no excused absences. Agenda approval. Planning commissioners, you do have an agenda in front of you. I would ask for a motion to approve the agenda for tonight's meeting.
so moved.
Second.
I second.
Yep. Moved by Frost, second by Boggs. In accordance with the executive order, we are going to take a roll call vote. So Madam Clerk, if you would please do so.
Blackledge? She keeps being muted. Let's see. Blackledge?
Sorry, it said I couldn't unmute. Yes, sorry.
Thank you. Boggs?
Yes.
Castle?
Yes.
Ferrante?
Yes.
Frost?
Yes.
Jasmine?
Yes.
Jax?
Yes.
Warner?
Yes.
Earl?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much. We have an approved agenda tonight. Next housekeeping item, approval of the minutes. So we have the meeting minutes from our meeting on July 8th of 2020. I would ask for a motion to approve the minutes from July 8th.
Motion to approve the minutes from July 8th.
I second.
Motion by Commissioner Blackledge, support by Commissioner Jax. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Blackledge?
Yes.
Boggs?
Yes.
Castle?
Yes.
Ferrante?
Yes.
Frost?
Yes.
Jasmine?
Yes.
Jax?
Yes.
Warner?
Yes.
Earl?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much. Next item on our agenda is communications. So we have received in excess of 150 separate written communications regarding tonight's public hearing. What I am going to do is read into the record the names of the individuals that submitted those communications. Copies of all the communications have been provided to the planning commissioners. Communications were received up until 12 p.m. as of yesterday. So As of that date and time, the Planning Commission had received communications from Tim McLean, Bruce and Patricia Gagne, John Zarnick, Millicent Zarnick, James and Patricia Bryan, Marianne and Rick Robinson, Mike Dwyer, Amy Nuremberg, Vito Leone, Ann Sack, Jim Sack, John R. Kane, Judith A. Kane, Frank Toth, Maria Toth, John R. Bell, Catherine Jane Bell, Carolyn A. Zanetti, Norman Cosma, Mary Malachi, Joe Blackson, Edward Brown, Janet Brown, Amanda Phillips, Renee Croy, Bruce Milkins, Bundette Milkins, Christine Milkins, Dylan Milkins, S. Diane Milkins, Mary T. Verity, Mary Lou Roberts, Michael Tronson, Sarah Tronson, Paul Fishwick, Judith Cook, Michael Joseph Toth, Karen S. Trombley, Timothy Jackson, Danny Damron, Donna Damron, Bruce Mirkowitz, Pam Mirkowitz, Patricia Fortuna Ray, Carol Hendricks, David D. Bardaway, Pamela Murphy, Kevin Caldwell, Melinda Caldwell, Carrie A. Wood, Betty J. Haas, Brendan B. Gillespie, Joyce Brown, Dan Gillespie, David Blackson, Michelle Blackson, Michelle M. Taskoff, Michael Gilbert, Judy Gilbert, Janice Bainai, Neil Anderson, William Anderson, Robina Anderson, Maria Rory, Charles W. Kurth, John Marchak, David Onofrio, Barbara Onofrio, Kathy Bell, Marlene Carrier, Veronica Carrier, Patrick Kinney, Teresa Kinney, Kathy Bockel, David Bockel, Edmund Quirk, Kathleen Quirk, Christine L. Davis, Richard J. Nagy, Tamara A. Nagy, Bridget Horvath, Derek Horvath, Nicole Quirk, Matthew Quirk, Robert V. Johnson, Ken Wagner, Furman J. Puebla, Joel Buchanan, Wilma Lee DeVore, Sherla Watkins, Carol M. Ramirez, Beverly D. St. Louis, Sandra Zwidema, Betty Jo Hughes, Brian Pollock, A. Collett, Andrew Griffin, Judith Maega, Rachel Adler, Christopher Johnson, Rebecca Johnson, Megan O'Brien, Dennis O'Brien, Kim E. Wilson, Jewel Festini, Vincent Festini, Kaylee Festini, Marla Stenpinski, Nicholas McIntosh, Kaylee McIntosh, Philip Ratliff, Gary Litchie, Eileen Litchie, Deborah Schneider, Valerie Ratliff, Helen Phillip, Richard Phillip, Leroy Heasley, Bruce T. King, Leonard Zerilli, Rose Zerilli, Janet Davison, Mark Trombley, Anne Marie Cunningham, James Cunningham, Bonnie Pavis, Gregory Trombley, Mike Jernigan, Peggy Jernigan, Michael Benda, Bonnie Benda, Lori Mosley, Vasiliki, Vasilaros Papoulos, Kathy Kramer, Tom Jolly, Marissa Nicely, Dean Nicely, Glenn Lesperance, Sharon Lesperance, Lee Kraus, Robert Johnson, Mark Gorno, Daniel DeGroat, Jessica DeGroat, Ralph J. Kinsler Jr., Celine Kinsler, Leanne McAllister, Lisa Rogers, D.O., Deborah Loveday, Jack Loveday, Kelly Maher, Stephanie Tucker, Ph.D., Norma Smerica, Lauren Burtka, Mary K. Dubay, Michael DeJulian, Brian V. Mocha, Marino Mocha. Take a drink after all of that. So thank you. I want to thank you for submitting the communications. They were received by all the planning commissioners, as I mentioned. I now ask the planning commission for a motion to receive and place on file the communications received tonight.
Motion to receive by Mario.
Second that.
Second.
Motion by Ferranti, second by Jasmine. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Blackledge,
Yes.
Boggs. Thumbs up. Castle,
Yes.
Ferrante,
Yes.
Frost. Another thumbs up. Jasmine,
Yes.
Jax,
Yes.
Warner,
Yes.
Earl.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. So the next item on our agenda is public to be heard on non-agenda items. So this would be the public's opportunity to provide comment on anything other than the proposed zoning ordinance, which is up for public hearing tonight. So anything other than the zoning ordinance, now is your opportunity to provide public comment to the Planning Commission. We'd ask that you raise your hand with the button in the Zoom meeting if you'd like to provide a comment, and the clerk or I will unmute you. I will be strictly enforcing the 3-minute time limit tonight. We have, as of right now, over 300 people in the meeting. So if you do the math, that obviously works out to 900 minutes if everyone were to take all 3 minutes. So now's the time for public comment on non-agenda items. Any hands raised?
One right up, two.
None?
I think Ann Bunting is raising her hand.
Find it.
And Pat Hardig is also, and Jameson Yeager was.
Bear with me a minute, I gotta find you. Can't even see. Whoever's first on your list, Tracy. Stephanie Baldrup.
Right now, Ann's unmuted.
Yes. Should I talk now or wait?
Ann Bunting, you
Yes.
may speak now.
Okay, this has nothing to do with today.
Please, for the record, if you would state your name and address, and then once you do that, I will start the clock.
Okay, Ann Bunting, 1843 Ardmore Street in Trenton.
Thank you.
So ready now?
Ready now.
Okay, good. I am so disappointed with Trenton. I grew up here and so on. I've married my husband. We've been married for 49 years. He has multiple sclerosis. I cannot get him into many of the restaurants. Here in Trenton, there's no handicap parking. I can't lift him over a curb. Also, Mr. Nix just did a renovation of their restaurant, and there's a threshold in which does not allow someone in a wheelchair. My husband is a 20-year veteran of the Army. There's 100,000 veterans with MS from the Army. I don't know if any of you even are aware of that. My husband's been in a wheelchair for, since 96, however many years that is. And I'm very disappointed with Trenton. Downtown Trenton, I can't get him into those restaurants. I'd have to pull him out of the wheelchair or pull him out of the car. walk him down West Jefferson, which is a little bit of traffic, to a corner where there's a ramp. So, and I get all these excuses. Well, it's not our fault, blah, blah, blah. Well, yeah, it is. So some of you get in a wheelchair and try and move around Trenton. Okay? I dare you. That's all.
Thank you, Ms. Bunting. Patricia Hardig, I believe.
Yes, hello. I just will be very brief. It is somewhat related. Patricia Hardig, 2357 Ashby. I submitted written comments delivered to the building department for this evening on Monday afternoon, and I didn't hear my name called. So I'm just hoping that my written comments were also submitted in your list of 150. Maybe you didn't name all 100.
Aaron, I can confirm that they were in the packet.
All right, great. Thank you so much. That's all. Nothing more. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Stephanie Waldrop, I believe you have your hand up as well. Stephanie, do you have public comment? Is she unmuted? Not muted. Stephanie, we can't hear you if you're speaking. All right, we're going to move on. Stephanie, if you can get your audio working, please raise your hand again. I'm seeing a Joy with a hand raised.
Okay, I am unmuted, and this is Joy Reno, 2137 3rd Street. I'm not sure if it's you guys I talked to about this or not, but during the winter, the wall that separates my private property from the business behind me, across the alley from me, was knocked down by one of the snow plows. I would like that wall put back up. The wall prevents the people from plowing into my fence that is on the back, in my backyard on the alley. And then I'll talk to you about the motion for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Joy. Jared Boderi.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
My name's Jared Beaudry. I'm at 760 Detroit Street. And I don't know if this is necessarily related to the motion today, but those of us in the neighborhood in North Trenton that are probably most affected by the land in question, I don't know if it's been brought up, but I guess my thought was if it's going to decrease property value, is there thought of them having to do some sort of profit sharing for those of us in the neighborhood? And that's kind of the only comment I have on that.
All right, thank you, Jared. We're going to have a public hearing here in just a second on that if you want to, but your comment is noted. I'm scrolling through 316 participants to make sure we're not missing anyone. So bear with me for a moment. Seeing none, I think we're going to move on to the agenda item that I imagine most of you are here for tonight, which is our public hearing. And I'm going to make a general statement about the public hearing. I will have the clerk read the public hearing into the record, and then I'm going to go over a few ground rules about the public hearing before we open it up for comment. So tonight we are having our public hearing to consider the proposed zoning ordinance for the city of Trenton and revised zoning map. Final decision on this proposed zoning ordinance and revised zoning map has not yet been made. That decision will ultimately be made by the city council and will take into account what is said at this meeting and what is recommended by the planning commission. I would ask the clerk now to read for the record notice of this public hearing.
City of Trenton, Michigan Planning Commission notice of public hearing. A virtual public hearing will be held by the Trenton Planning Commission via Zoom meeting at 7 p.m. on Wednesday, July 22nd, 2020, to review and hear comments on the following. A ordinance to replace the previous ordinance that was adopted February 20th, 2007. The proposed ordinance includes the creation of new zoning districts, new and updated definitions, permitted and special uses for districts, and new requirements and regulations for the city of Trenton. The zoning ordinance is designed to promote the public health, safety, and general welfare, to encourage the use of lands in accordance with their character and adaptability. In addition, a revised zoning map is being proposed to reflect created and rezoned districts as proposed by the ordinance. The proposed ordinance and revised zoning map is available for viewing on the city website at www.trentonmi.org. The proposed ordinance and revised zoning map will also be on file at the Trenton City Clerk's office from 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. for examination by interested citizens and taxpayers. The meeting is being held electronically in compliance with Governor Whitmer's Executive Orders 2020-110 and 2020-129, which suspend in-person government activities not necessary to sustain or protect life and the Open Meetings Act requirements due to COVID-19 pandemic. Members of the public wishing to participate in the meeting may register at the link provided or through the link on the city website at www.trentonmi.org. Public comments may be heard during the public participation portion of the hearing. Comments may also be submitted to the Planning Commission's clerk in writing by 5 p.m. on Monday, July 20th, 2020, addressed to the City of Trenton Planning Commission, 2800 3rd Street, Trenton, Michigan, 48183. People with disabilities needing accommodations for effective participation at this meeting should contact the City Clerk's office at 734-675-8600 at least 3 business days in advance to request mobility, visual, hearing, or other assistance. By the order of the City of Trenton Planning Commission. This was published in the News Herald newspaper on July 5th, 2020. It was also listed on the City of Trenton website, and it was posted at Trenton City Hall, the Trenton Library, and the Trenton Recreation Center.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I am now going to address a couple, I guess, ground rules before we open the public hearing. As I mentioned earlier, this is a very full meeting room. I'm looking right now at the participants at 326. So I will be strictly enforcing the 3-minute time limit as I did earlier with the non-agenda public comment item. I will have the timer going on my phone. When the 3 minutes is up, you'll hear an alarm, at which point I will mute you and we will move on to the next speaker. It will be a true public comment. There will be no question and answer between the members of the public and the Planning Commission. There will be no discourse between us. or fellow members of the public. Members of the public wishing to speak should raise their hand via the Zoom button, and then we will make every effort to get to you in the order that your hands are raised.
You got it.
I have a couple of requests, and I want to emphasize requests because I can't legally prohibit anyone from speaking tonight. But given the number of participants and given the time, the 3-minute time limit, we could be in for a long night. So I would request that if comments are made, that we make every effort to try to avoid repeating them. If you submitted written correspondence, please know that we did receive that. If you would like to read your written correspondence into the record, you're free to do so, but we do have a copy of that. And then finally, vulgarity, profanity, obscenity, or personal attacks of any kind will not be tolerated. If we run into that situation, I will mute you, and if it continues, I do have the ability to remove people from the meeting, which I hope to not have to do. I think I covered everything. Ben, did I leave anything out?
Not that I'm aware of, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. So with that, I am now going to ask our planning consultant, Ben Tallarico, to make a brief introductory statement regarding the zoning ordinance, and then immediately following his statement, I will open the public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission, distinguished members of the audience. For the record, Benjamin Tallarico, planning consultant from Beckett and Rader for the city of Trenton. First, I'd like to address what zoning is. It's the process of dividing land in a municipality into zones in which certain land uses are permitted or prohibited. In addition, the sizes, bulk, and placement of buildings may be regulated. Zoning is by far the most common regulatory divider of local governments use to help carry out their plans. There are others, such as subdivision regulations, but again, zoning is the most widespread method. Give you a little history of zoning. The first comprehensive zoning ordinance in the United States was New York City, a little over 100 years ago in 1916. However, as I frequently tell my clients when I'm asked if something is legal, I always say you never know for sure till you go to court. And that was the same with zoning. It wasn't until 10 years later, in 1926, that the Supreme Court of the United States took up zoning in the landmark case, Village of Euclid, Ohio versus Ambler Realtor Company, more commonly known as Euclid versus Ambler. It was the first significant case regarding the relatively new practice of zoning. And this served to substantially bolster the ability to have zoning ordinances throughout the nation and through other countries. So then we had the ability to tell you what to do with your property, but within reason. If we overreach, it is considered a taking. And I'll explain a taking. Both the U.S. Constitution and the Michigan Constitution prohibit the government from taking land from a private landowner without just compensation. However, the United States Supreme Court first recognized in 1922 that if regulation goes too far, it will also be recognized as a taking. In other words, government does not have to take your land for it to be considered a taking. If you prevent appropriate uses of the site but don't take ownership, you could wind up in court and it can be considered a taking. I want to briefly go over a few of the differences between the zoning ordinance and our master plan. Zoning ordinance is general. It's a guide. Zoning is the law. It provides for specific regulations. Master plan is what's likely going to happen in the next 20 years. It's as a guide because we really have difficulty predicting the future. Most of us have taken a history class, but not many of us have ever taken a class in the future, where the zoning ordinance describes what you are allowed to do now. The master plan makes recommendations about how to meet your future goals, which may involve organizations outside of the city of Trenton. The zoning ordinance has no authority to address issues outside the city of Trenton. The master plan is a flexible document. It is made flexible so it may respond to change in market conditions, business expansions, and development trends. So yes, you may deviate from your master plan. Zoning is generally a rigid document that requires a public hearing for any amendment. Our process of how we got here today. The city put together a committee to go through the process and make recommendations to this full planning commission. This was about a total new zoning ordinance, not a single piece of property. The committee was comprised of representatives of most city departments and divisions. It included elected and appointed officials, people from public safety, parks and rec, planning, administration. And the zoning ordinance we have in front of us is the one that the planning committee recommends to the full PC. But please note, the only body that can actually enact a new zoning ordinance is the city council. All this body can do is make a recommendation. Therefore, after this PC makes a recommendation, it goes to the city council, who are the ones that can actually approve or deny or not approve a recommendation. I'd like to highlight some changes. We met the city with major property owners to get their input about future plans in order to help guide our zoning decisions. One of the challenges we had was the concerning of the lack of residential commercial development proposals. The committee was unaware of anyone who has proposed residential or commercial along our waterfront, which was heavy industrial. So one of our goals was to allow development, but also provide buffers to adjoining properties. Therefore, we changed our industrial from light, which was I-1, medium, which was I-2, and heavy, I-3, which is mostly on the water, to I-1 light, I-W, which you could look at as like an I-2, what would be the waterfront district, and I-2 now becoming the heavy industrial district. Therefore, if you compare the maps from before and the maps now, the most intense industrial district is the I-2, and we are not proposing that on the waterfront. Previously, the waterfront was where we had the most intense industrial uses. On the north end, the former McLouth steel site has a large part of the waterfront that is heavy industrial, I-3, along with mixed use. And on the south end, after Elizabeth Park. Not anymore. They have been replaced with a district that has more protections, along with not allowing more intense uses. As an example, our current ordinance, not the one we are proposing tonight, our current ordinance, we allow in the IC districts along the waterfront the following permitted uses. And note, these are not special uses, these are uses permitted by right. Junkyards, petroleum, other inflammable liquids, production, refining, and storage, smelting of metallic ores or compounds, tire manufacturing, and commercial incineration and other forms of water treatment. None of the uses I just noted will be permitted by right in the IW district. In addition, we have taken another step and we prohibited the following uses from the IW district altogether. Any storage of petroleum coke, in other words, pet coke or the derivative thereof. Any storage inside or out or imported to or exported from the site of any explosives, any radioactive materials, any hazardous waste, any toxic substances which are liable to cause death or serious injury, and any biohazards. We actually spell it out now, we didn't in our current one, that these uses are not allowed along the waterfront. We don't allow junkyards when outdoors. We don't allow parking and or storage of disabled or damaged vehicles. Commercial incineration or other forms of waste treatment aren't allowed. Petroleum or other inflammable liquids, production, refining, or storage are not allowed. Neither is smelting of metallic ores or compounds, such as copper, iron, or zinc. We don't allow tire manufacturing. We don't allow recycling centers, scrap and or material recovery facilities when done outdoors or with outdoor storage. And we prohibit waste transfer facilities. Speaking to the reason that a lot of people might be here, the former McLouth site, that is on the national priority list, what we call NPL. You want to think of the Love Canal? You know what we're talking about. Sites on the NPL are considered the most highly contaminated and undergo long-term remedial investigation and remedial actions of what we commonly call cleanups. Today, the cleanup and demolition of the site is under the NPL agreement with the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency. Now, there are more environmental protections on the site than there has been in a long while. And the owners have to meet the cleanup remediation standards. The agreement is to clean it up to non-residential standards. It's not being cleaned up per the EPA and the NPL agreement to residential standards. We also removed the OS district, the office service. There were too many cases of intersections having B1, B2, and B3 on the four corners. The committee felt it was better to streamline and remove the OS district. We also created other new districts such as Wildlife Reserve to ensure proper development of the area, an extractive district, which is a finite district and will cease to exist when all extractions and ash deposits are complete. Before I give my conclusion, I want to address some falsehoods that's been circulated among the petitions that we have read. Falsehood pertaining to site plan review. On some comments the city has received, it's been stated you need a site plan for a roof and fence. Have any of you ever put a roof on your house? I would believe out of the 300 and some people you've put a roof on your house. Did you get a site plan that show where your house is and your shed and your driveway? No. So I want to say that is not true in the city of Trenton. It's probably not true in any other community, maybe Grosse Pointe Shores, which is almost completely residential. So you do not need a site plan for a roof. The false statement that the McLouth site will not have to provide a site plan. Unless they're putting a new roof on an existing building, which I do not believe there will be any left, they will have to submit a site plan. The process is noted in Article 28. Just as a point, let me reference the former Boston Market that's on West Road being converted to a financial institution. That required a site plan. And new construction on the former McLouth site will also require a site plan. Misconception about us regulating ships and shipping. Because it's not under the control of planning nor the city of Trenton, we can't regulate it. And there has been a deep water port on site. I know of no way that planning can say, remove your deep water port, or it has to be used for anything but, any more than I can tell you, you have to put cars in your garage and you can't store anything else in it. Misconception about regulating trains. Again, they are not under the control of the city, not the planning and not the city. Rumor that we are doing it now because we are trying to prevent public input, which has been noted on some responses. First off, we are allowed to have a Zoom meeting because of the recent extension 2020-154 of the governor's executive order that was noted in the public hearing that the clerk read. Second, we do not know when the governor's executive order will be lifted to allow us to have a face-to-face public meeting. We planned on having a public meeting in December 2019 and then again in March 2020. Unfortunately, death, illness, and the pandemic happened. The city also received a rezoning request in November of 2018 to rezone part of the former McLouth site to be consistent with the northeastern part and make it I-3. In other words, to make the mixed use more intense. Generally, municipalities can hold rezoning requests in abeyance while they are updating their zoning ordinance. But the delay has to be reasonable. The rezoning request is 20 months old. Since we do not know when we can meet at City Hall due to the pandemic, it is our opinion we can no longer wait for a meeting at City Hall. The new zoning ordinance needs to move forward through the process, and that is why we're meeting now by Zoom. If not, we would expect that we would have to take up the rezoning request on the former McLouth Steel site. Finally, have the public set conditional zoning. The public cannot set conditional rezoning. It's strictly prohibited in the Act. The only people that can request conditional zoning is the applicant, not the city and not the resident. So in conclusion, overall, we have made changes to the uses now allowed in the I-1 waterfront district, making it less intense and moving more intense industrial uses off the waterfront. It doesn't mean they can put less intense uses than we state in the IW. We just don't want them to put more intense. Previously, the heavy industrial district that was on the waterfront just had permitted uses. In other words, today in a zoning ordinance, everything that you can allow in the waterfront is allowed by right. We have made certain uses what we call special now on the waterfront, and that means they have to go through a public hearing just like this for those uses. And for the first time, we have spelled out prohibited uses in the waterfront district, which we did not have previously. As for the former McLouth site, presently almost half of the waterfront, just the waterfront area, not the site, is heavy industrial, meaning that on any of these uses I noted earlier are permitted by right now, today. Junkyard, petroleum and other inflammable liquids, production, refining, and storage, smelting and metallic ores and compounds, tire manufacturing, and commercial incineration or other forms of water treatment. They are permitted by right, and as long as the applicant meets the landscaping and setback and parking requirements, those can go in today on the waterfront in the northeast part of the former McLouth site. If we get an application, this body has to take it up. They meet the certain requirements of lighting, parking, bulk. Those uses are allowed. No public hearing is required. However, they won't be permitted by right in the new ordinance. Concerning the master plan, you can deviate from your master plan. As stated earlier, it is a flexible document. It is made flexible that it can respond to changing market conditions, business expansion, and development trends. We believe having a large parcel sold on a purchase and development agreement that is to be industrial, supported by city council to be industrial, and then being cleaned up to non-residential standards meets the reason to deviate from the master plan. Mr. Chair, members of the commission, again, distinguished members of the audience, what you have in front of you is a collective recommendation of the committee. Is it everything anyone wants? I don't know. It's most likely not everything anybody wants. But we must keep in mind that we cannot zone property however we want when it's owned by others. They have rights, and they also have the option to challenge the city if the feel the city has gone too far in the zoning. Overall, I want to commend the committee that the city put together. I believe they did a great job. They have come up with a workable, legal, defensible, and usable ordinance for the city of Trenton. Those are my opening statements, Mr. Chair, members of the commission.
Thank you, Ben. And I want to thank you as well for all your efforts on this. You are to be commended as well. So thank you very much. With that being said, I'm going to open the public hearing at this time, and we're going to follow the same rules we did as before. Raising your hand on the Zoom meeting. I'm going to make every effort to get to you in the order that your hands are raised. But again, I ask you to have some patience with us as we deal with the technology and the challenges of meeting remotely like this. I'm looking at about 7 or 8 hands. I'm hoping they put them in order for me. So I'm going to start with Meg Larson. Meg, I believe you're unmuted, so the floor is yours.
All right, thank you. I apologize if I overlap with some of the consultants' comments.
Meg, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. I'm not timing you for a second. A reminder to everyone, before you start your comments, just state your name and address for the record, please.
Yeah, Meg Larson, 1910 West Longmeadow.
Thank you.
And again, I apologize if I overlap with some of the things the consultant said. The first one, though, is he meant, and I understand you can't respond, but I had questions I just want to throw out there. He made a comment that the zoning was changed with the agreement of the council, but he didn't justify why. He just said it was changed. If the planned use development zoning is kept, what are some possible ramifications for keeping that? And so if the change in zoning gets voted down, I'm sure lawsuits will follow, as the consultant said. But I understand that the state has weighed in and says that an intermodal port would adversely affect the region in general and the river, especially considering the development of the wildlife refuge. So my question is whether the state has any say or jurisdiction over approving the proposed port. And if Crown does file a lawsuit, will that lawsuit be against the city, or will it then go towards the state? Another question I have is does an environmental impact study have to be done to see how this port will affect the International Wildlife Refuge since it's downstream? Now, I'm not naive in the fact that with DTE shutting down, we do need a new tax base. But in order not to give up everything and still get some revenue, can some form of port be accomplished under the existing PUD zoning? In other words, can it be negotiated so both sides can get something out of this? And instead of zoning all at once, can the property be split so it's not all IW? Or can we keep the PUD on part of it? Or what about rezoning smaller portions as they go instead of all at once? And if the rezoning goes through, and this is where I'm confused with the consultant, can we put restrictions in place concerning hours of operation, noise level, number of trucks, et cetera? And what about regarding a certain number of green space? Can that be put into the request or the zoning? DTE has done a great job preserving green space. So if the McLouth site goes IW, that would be a nice thing to put in there, because I think that's what a lot of people are looking for. And then speaking of DTE, why are we changing the zoning right now to IW? Why would can't we wait until DTE is totally shut down? I think we'd be tying our hands if we rezone that right away. And why would you put a shipping port next to a wildlife refuge? And so what's the harm in waiting? And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Larson. I appreciate your questions and comments. They're very relevant, and I would encourage you to submit them to us in writing if you would like.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. Next, I have Joy.
Hello, Joy Reno, 2137 3rd Street, Trenton. I urge you to vote no on adopting the proposed rezoning ordinance. I would like to see a stricter ordinance. whereas they would have possibly a larger greener space and other things that would enhance the property. That's all, please.
Thank you, Ms. Reno. Jeff is next on the list.
Hey, my name's Jeff Loger. I'm at 1580 Trail Drive. I'm against the proposal. One of the things I noticed in the gentleman's starting off the speech tonight is a lot of words being used to assume, I think. We're not sure. I think a lot of those issues need to be ironed out before any kind of proposal is given. A lot of assumptions and I thinks and I shoulds. I don't think it's really going to cut the mustard with the residents of Trenton. Just wanted to voice my opinion that my wife and myself are against the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Ryan Stewart is next.
My name is Ryan Stewart. I live at 1365 Harbor Boulevard in Unit 120 in Trenton. I wanted to bring up a couple of points. First, I'm of the opinion that this rezoning process being rushed during a global health crisis in an aging population who is less likely to use internet tools is not an appropriate way to handle this process in a transparent way. There's no reason to rush this. Many Superfund sites, many of these types of processes can take years, if not decades. Two, this development is not consistent with our award-winning master plan, which specifically expresses extremely detrimental impacts to our region should we not adopt a zoning ordinance that is inconsistent. A lot of the research in the master plan that we have on file states that with an aging population, reindustrializing would not only be bad for our health and our region's economic development, but it negatively impact our major features like our waterfront property and our international wildlife refuge. My third point, it is said that this is a comment about the entire zoning process and for the whole city, and it isn't geared towards one specific site. I did notice in the ordinance that in Article 17, Section 110, 355, under required conditions, point 5, says a truck traffic study shall be provided from a reputable firm agreed to by both the applicant and the city. I'm curious to understand if the proposal has nothing to do with the McLouth Steel developer, who is the applicant being referred to in the proposed ordinance. I'm also curious of the planner's comments regarding not being allowed to set conditional zoning. If that is the case, how come there are conditions expressly listed here if we are at the same time also not allowed to put stipulations? It seems as though it goes back to a lack of consistency in the entire process. Regarding his comment about not requiring site plans, I have been on the Zoning Board of Appeals for the City of Trenton for several years, and I will say from anecdotal experience that when rezoning requests come through, we do require a submission process for things like a fence that show distance and setback. A lot of people will submit graphs and site plans, and so that's been part of our rezoning process. In regarding conditional zoning, we grant zoning board appeal approval requests with stipulations about setbacks. So an example might be if there's a fence that wants to be built, we might stipulate that they cut a certain distance off the corner so that somebody backing out of a driveway, for example, can see oncoming traffic. When it comes to the roofs, the hip and the gable roof is another one. We get a lot of requests of people who want to make that transition. So I will just say, when it comes to any type of dispute or disagreement or litigation, back to what the gentleman said about a lot of I think and probably and if, this is not a situation or a circumstance that would warrant
Stewart,
any type of uncertainty.
I'm sorry, but your time is up.
Thank you.
All right. I apologize, but I have to do that or we'll be here all night. So we're going to move on to the next public comment, and that is Pat Roy.
Hi, I'm Pat Roy, 4785 Hillcrest here in Trenton. I certainly agree with Ryan and many of the others who are stating there just seem to be too many inconsistencies at the time to even think of moving forward on this project. First of all, I was at one of the beginning meetings for the KEG setup, and I sat with the current planning commissioner and one of the councilmen, and I mentioned to them about plans for rezoning. Now, this was done in January 23rd, and they denied any knowledge of knowing that there was anything going on about rezoning. And then the mayor says in the paper this past week or so that, oh, the zoning plan has been going on for long before the McLouth project. So here's a little bit of another inconsistency. My major concern, I think, that is detrimental. Zoning can be very positive when it is done for the well-being of the citizens. However, this project is not that. It will reduce your taxes that you're going to be receiving as our home values plummet. It will interfere with recreation, boating, fishing, of course, the national refuge or the natural refuge, and the pollution. Maybe not from the water, not from what's going on, even though it will with increased shipping, but the air we breathe. More train, more, and there, I don't know how Trenton would ever have enough money to control the air quality of our community. We inhale it all of the time. Right now we're wearing masks. We'll have to wear something more than that if this project is seen to the end. So I hope that you will consider the population and the people who have voted you in. This is the voters' voice. And we are asking you to not continue forward until you know you have, I want you to have a site plan, because then you can't say, well, we didn't know they were going to do that. How do you zone something and not know what's going to be put there and what the design of it is? It just doesn't make sense to me. But anyway, thank you. My time's, I'm sure, going to be out here. I appreciate the work you're doing, and I pray that you will do what is best for the citizens of Trenton. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Roy. All right, next up on our list, Jana Rose.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Great. My name is Jana Rose, proud resident of the city of Trenton for over 30 years. I'm on 2481 Edsel. Before approving the recommendation that includes a plan to rezone the former McLouth site from predominantly mixed-use development to be solely industrial, I ask for specific and, if possible, research-based answers to the following questions. How will this plan enhance or detract the environmental qualities of the community? How will this plan enhance the recreational potential of the community? And what are the long-term effects? That's where I'm looking more research-based answers. For example, will we need roads rebuilt nearer in the future? Will we see increased localized pollution? Will our waterways be impacted for fishing, swimming, or other activities? And I ask these questions because the current zoning plan for this area is clear in its intentions. It's partially intended to enhance the environmental qualities and recreational potential of the community. It calls for the optimum use of public, park, and open space areas. It says that a successful development will create a desirable visual image that will lend itself to safe and pleasant pedestrian movements throughout. It also requires that buildings next to river frontage be set back to allow for walkways, boardwalks, and other landscaping between the building and the riverfront. The intention and requirements of the new industrial waterfront zone, however, do not include any such language. I understand that the property owner wishes to utilize the entire site for medium intensity industry. However, the city's current vision is clearly intended to, quote, make a positive contribution to sustaining the quality of life in the community. Why should the developer's interests change the community's vision for this area? To rezone from mixed-use development to industrial waterfront would be turning our back on the vision for an improved community that places the utmost value on its current and future residents, rather than on the economic gain brought by big industry. I challenge our leaders to be creative when looking for economic opportunities. Rezoning may be the path of least resistance for increased tax revenue, but there are other opportunities. Let us exhaust all resources available to us. Certainly, we are not the first waterfront city in the world to weigh a decision such as this. I would like to see our community leader.
Thank you, Ms. Rose. Time's up. All right. I hope I'm not going to regret this, but next on the list is what I have to suspect is not a real name, Jameson Yeager.
Actually, it is my real name, sir, but I get that more than you might think.
Well, I apologize then, but the floor is yours, Mr. Yeager.
Thank you very much. 24657 Hickory Drive. Good evening, fellow residents of Downriver. My name's Jameson Yeager. I'm a resident of Grosse Ile, but I'm speaking to you as your neighbor. I'm actually talking tonight to express the position of myself and several other Grosse Ile candidates for local election, in that we strongly oppose the reindustrialization of the Detroit River Trenton Channel and its underutilized shoreline. We especially oppose the development of a massive intermodal port along the channel. But I wouldn't oppose something without offering hope for something else. So I wish to say that we strongly support the current mixed-use zoning and the related visionary Trenton Coast Resiliency Plan for the McLouth Mill. Myself and the other GI 2020 candidates believe it is time for all communities of the Trenton Channel, Grosse Ile, Trenton, Riverview, Wyandotte, and Gibraltar to work together to develop a regional strategy for environmental cleanup and sustainable economic development that will create good jobs, increase property values, and boost tax revenue. This strategy would focus on highlighting and enhancing a nautical economy that maximizes the river as a community amenity for new mixed-use development, marinas, water sports businesses, hunting, fishing, and eco-tourism. It's time that we, the Detroit River communities, work together to revitalize our underutilized post-industrial shorelines in a manner that is similar to what's being done in Detroit and numerous other communities in our great state of Michigan. There's no reason that the Trenton coastal communities cannot be the destination for outdoor travel in Southeast Michigan. In fact, we have the perfect environment for it. This approach, one of community cooperation for the greater good of all, will ensure residents and businesses in our communities will enjoy the greatest level of prosperity and the highest quality of life. You, as members of the zoning board, are charged with protecting the people of Trenton, with providing them with great recreational opportunities, a high quality of life, and increasing property values. The construction of this intermodal port would only serve to decrease those things and take away any chance we have as a regional economy to grow into a beautiful, prosperous, and environmentally safe and enjoyable place to live, work, and play. So I ask you, as your neighbor, to please work with us to create a great place for all of us, where it isn't about Trenton or Grosse Ile or Wyandotte, but about the beautiful channel that we all live beside and enjoy. So I know this is a difficult decision for all of you, and I understand that. I hope that you will find the strength of character and spirit of community enough to do what is right. So thanks very much for your time and energy, and I hope you and my neighbors in the city of Trenton the very best. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yeager. Your comments are appreciated. I have Richard Obermeyer next on my list. Mr. Obermeyer.
Yeah, hi, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, thank you. My name is Richard Obermeyer. I live at 20669 Meridian Road on Grosse Ile. And I'd first like to address some areas of concern that I have and then pose a question. So my areas of concern for this development are pollution, noise, aesthetics, traffic patterns, and ongoing maintenance of the property. So my question is there a process for effectively mandating or controlling limits on these types of things? And is that process a part of zoning, or is it other things that we can have an impact on? So I don't know how, if you answer the questions here, or if I just submit it maybe in a different way, but that's my question. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Obermeyer. Yeah, as I indicated, we're not engaging in question and answer just from a time standpoint. But if you would like to submit your questions in writing, you're more than welcome to do so.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Pat Bryan.
Hi, Pat Bryan, 1926 Church Place, which is about 1,000 feet from McLouth Steel. I noticed that in 2005, Trenton established the area as a mixed zone area. My big question, or my big statement is, if it's been mixed zone all this time, why all of a sudden are we asked to revote it or change it to the industrial use? We've lived here since 1985. We have attended every single meeting. The package I sent you was 16 pages of documentation and letters that I've sent in the past. My neighbors and I have all gone to the meetings asking that we keep it as a mixed zone area. We oppose it because we don't think any amount of money into the coffers of Crown Enterprises, nor of any taxes that can be coming to the city of Trenton, is worth the detriments of the pollution, whether it's air, water, noise, or traffic, that the industrial use would cause. We are sandwiched in between the derelict Riverside Hospital too, so that's a bit much. On July 14th, there were several pages of Maddie Maroon's legacy, and on page A6, there was a quote from Thomas Skip Mahone, who was one of Maroon's top aides. This is a direct quote. "When someone says no, we just look for another way to make it happen. Do we ruffle feathers? Damn right." This makes me believe that Crown Enterprises will do anything it wants for its own benefits. They don't care about downriver residents. So if we agree to make it industrial, I have 6 pages of what the law says industrial use could be. Anywhere from slaughterhouses to whatever. The city council has this. We brought it up at many meetings. So I am asking the planning commission and the city council to vote no. We citizens vote you in. We expect representation. From what you've heard, everybody wants a no vote. Please follow what the citizens want. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bryan. Next on the list is Robert Johnson. Mr. Johnson, the floor is yours.
Robert Johnson. I have lived at 2020 Riverside Drive in Trenton for over 30 years. I have lived and worked in Wyandotte, Riverview, Grosse Ile for most of my life. Been active in community projects in all of the communities that I have. I have studied the Trenton Coast Resiliency Master Plan and the planning review that McLouth property by Beckett and Reeder, Landscape Architecture, Planning, Engineering, and Environmental Services, and to the sent to the Planning Commission in 2016. I am a member of and have attended all of the McLouth Superfund Community Advisory Group and reviewed all of the documents presented to us. From many points of view, I am very familiar with the McLouth site and the steel plant built there. I am familiar with the up and down effects this property has had on the communities around it. I see no rush to rezone it without more study and input. Process will be further hampered by the current threat to all of our communities. To start with, the very title, Industrial Waterfront, and its description seems to fly in the face of the Trenton Coast Resiliency Master Plan and the Beckett Reader Review and conclusions. Further, the testing of the soil and water contamination and flow is just about to begin. It will take some time for results and remedial recommendations to be provided to you and to the community. The conditions of the shoreline and its stability will not be part of the work studies being done. This will be important information for the Planning Commission to have in evaluating any proposed use of property. So far, the owner's plans for redevelopment are vague at best. Their care of the street view of the property has been left much to be desired, and they have indicated no major improvements will be made in the near future. It has been suggested that MSC will bring other companies into the redevelopment property. Without knowing those companies, who those companies are, what they do, and their past histories, and giving them such broad latitude as this new waterfront industrial zoning does.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. I apologize for having to cut you off, but I have to do it to everybody consistently. Let's see, Stephanie Pinage. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. Stephanie, you're up.
Good job. Oh, you did good. That's how you say it, Pinage. I live at 1620 Yellow Brick Court in Trenton, obviously. With increased industry, I think we can all agree that there's going to be some sort of industry at the old McLouth property, even though I think everybody on here is trying to prevent that from happening. But how do we lessen the burden for us residents, right? Increased industry comes increased truck traffic. Those trucks get off of 275 and they get off of 75 and they travel all the way down Sibley Road. And instead of continuing down Sibley, once they get to Allen Road, are forced to turn down Allen and take King Road to get all the way to West Jefferson. They could just straight shot it all the way down Sibley to get to West Jefferson to pull into the McLouth property. Unfortunately, they can't do that because Sibley is not a Class A road. King Road currently has about 350 trucks a day pulling into the landfill that Trenton and Riverview residents have to deal with. And with another 350 trucks, give or take a day, also going down King Road to get to the McLouth property now, it just is more of a nuisance for us. I have tried to talk to our commissioner. I don't know if he's one of the 308 people listening. I've talked to people at the county. It costs a lot of money to turn Sibley Road into a Class A road, but it would lessen the burden for all of us because then we wouldn't have 700 trucks a day going down one street. So I'm just asking that maybe members of the Planning Commission, members of the council and current residents that are listening to this to talk to appropriate members of the county and your local elected officials to push for this, because we need to all work together to try to lessen the burden that this increased industry is going to put on all of us. And instead of forcing it all into one localized place, we might be able to spread it out to make it a little bit more convenient. And that is really all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you for comments, Ms. Panaj. Next on the list, Caitlin Adams Rusidlo.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
All right, thank you. I am Caitlin Adams Rusidlo. We live at 2414 Medford Street. I'm extremely concerned and increasingly frustrated with the intentions of the city and committees surrounding the former McLouth site. My family bought our home in Trenton in 2016 and have 2 children in the schools, and more families like mine would potentially be moving into the city of Trenton over the next 5 to 10 years as our original homeowners age and more homes become available for sale. The former McLouth site is not only a topic familiar to Trenton residents, it is familiar to all of our local communities and even farther to the people in the region who are concerned with and invested in our environment and our waterways. If the former McLouth site is rezoned into a strictly industrial use instead of maintaining its current zoning of mixed use, it will not only be catastrophically detrimental to our community and to our environment, but it will also deter potential homeowners and home buyers to away from Trenton because our values will drop. I have not heard almost any community support for rezoning it to a strictly industrial use. However, I have heard extreme dissatisfaction with that idea, and when it's going to affect our community and it's supposed to be a decision made by our community representatives, it is something that needs to be done in the best interest of the community. If we make poor choices and we allow it to go back to being used in an strictly industrial usage, it will affect our air, it will affect our roads, it will affect our waterways, and people will avoid coming to Trenton. The median age of Trenton is going to drastically decrease from now to 10 years from now. And there's no reason to make this change, or especially to not make it so quickly with such seemingly little consideration to the studies and little consideration to the expectations of the residents into what our public representatives are supposed to be doing. I would really hope that this decision is made for the right reasons and that we actually have a voice as the residents, because clearly we have no control in the situation. I appreciate this being public. I appreciate the opportunity to share my concerns, and I really, really hope that we do not make a mistake that we will regret for generations. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Zidlow. Next up, Vasiliki Vasilaros Papoulis.
Can you hear me now?
Can hear you, yes.
Vasiliki Vasilaros Papoulis, 8119 Woodcrest Drive, Grosio. I have a comment and a few questions, and thank you for the opportunity. I also want to say that I'm very impressed with the people who have spoken, and I appreciate their input. Our downriver communities have been abandoned by Wayne County and the local jurisdictions that were created to represent us. We have the right as taxpayers and residents to determine how the site can be used to benefit and improve the community. We are already surrounded by wastewater treatment plants that pollute the air, railroad lines that continually block emergency vehicles and traffic without regulation or recourse, an abandoned chemical plant, crumbling roads and bridges, and traffic congestion. There is only one road for access, which is already blocked by trains at Pennsylvania, Sibley, and King. My one question is, why would the Planning Commission even consider subjecting its own community to even more industrial traffic, congestion, hazardous material, and pollution? I would also like to ask if they have done community impact studies, including traffic analysis, corridor and feasibility studies, access management, safety, and environmental studies. My last question is, how will this benefit the community? Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Paplis. Bill Heil is next. Bill?
Am I free to speak?
We can hear you. You're free to go.
Thank you. I'm Bill Heil. I live at 29228 East River Road, Grosse Ile. I'm president of the Grosse Ile Civic Association. Our basic concerns here are not only for ourselves, I'm talking about the residents of Grosse Ile, which implies basically our concern for quality of life, which reduces to our health concerns, but also to our daily living, pertinent to much of the comments that have been made about travel. But there's impact here as to why the decision has to be made so quickly as well. The travel has already been enumerated. I mean, from Grosse Ile's point of view, if we have a port, we're delayed by bridges swinging open. That impacts how we commute to work, how we handle an emergency in an ambulance. From Grosse Ile's concern with our health, we also have the possibility of concern about that deep soil pollutions traveling over here. We don't see a need for making a decision this quickly. The time frame for environmental studies is going to unfold over approximately a 3-year period. There's approximately $3 million estimated as the cost, and only $1 million a year is to be expended. When those results from those sequential investigations are made, they have to be investigated. And I think that when you know what the quality of the soil is, you realize, one, you can only improve it to a certain level, but that's important. But you also have time to investigate how you can insulate yourself against any other further exposure to that contamination. All of that is significant to Trenton because then it tells you what you can do with that property to enhance your tax base to make the future grow better. There's never been any comment that I have heard after this facility is there about who pays for the roads in these other conditions, how many jobs are actually created. If this is a transport facility, a lot of jobs might be created, but where do the workers live? They can come in, load their truck, and maybe buy a sandwich on their way out of town. If you can have people who live here, who reside here, who can go to Wendy's or a dry cleaners, that's a better thing. I'm suggesting you hold off and make further decisions about how this all is coordinated. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Heil. Looks like Tracy Loger is next.
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
We can hear you. You're up, Ms. Loger.
Yes, my name is Tracy Loger. I'm 580 in Trenton. A lot of people have already touched on a lot of the concerns that I have also. One of the biggest concerns that I have is area also helps use landfill. The truck traffic, the dust, the trash everywhere, etc. Trenton doesn't have a whole control over that because it's not in the city. However, it impacts the residents of Trenton greatly. My concern is the added truck traffic. My concern is is going to be bringing even more trash over to the landfill. The landfill is a constant battle for a lot of residents of Trenton. And to have another battle to this area that we is just a bad decision. So many other things that could be done to enhance this area. Here for the small town feel of the neighborhoods and the city. It seems that is not the direction Trenton is headed. They are headed to the industrial direction that is not going to attract families in this area, and it's going to affect our property values. So that is most of what I have to say. Like I said, a lot of people have already touched base on a lot of the same concerns that I have. I really hope that you will take all of this into consideration and how it's going to affect the residents in this community. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Ms. Loger. I see a Raider is next. It's not letting me unmute him or her. You guys having any luck with that? I don't know. Raider, I apologize. I cannot unmute you right now. I don't know if you want to try and log out and log back in, but I can't seem to unmute you. So we'll move on to Lauren Nikolovsky Amity. Lauren.
Good evening. My name is Lauren Nikolovsky Amity. I live at 1365 Harbor Boulevard, number 120 in Trenton, Michigan. I strongly urge the Planning Commission to reject or recommend against rezoning of the McLouth area and any waterfront property, increasing the amount of industry tolerated for those regions. Flexing away from our master plan is damaging in the long run. It will have negative impacts on our environment and economic development. We rely on our representatives to advocate for our long-term interest, 30, 40, 50 years into the future, not just the next 5 or 10 years. Over 300 people have come here tonight to express their extreme disapproval of this proposal due to the increased pollution and declining economic opportunity with heavy industry looking into the future. Moreover, your constituents, myself included, would likely rather see and bear the burden of the city getting challenged for representing the community's strongly expressed desire to reject or restrict certain waterfront uses than getting a pat on the back from the very developers looking to profit at our community's long-term expense. We support our leaders in what might be the difficult vote of no on this particular issue. Thank you for representing us and thank you for your time. Please vote no.
Thank you. All right, we'll try this again. Raider, I'm going to try to unmute you.
Yes.
I can hear you. If you'd please state your name and address for the record.
Yes, my name is Dennis Rader, 1525 Pine Tree. That's Trenton. I've been a resident for about 43 years. I'm Stephanie's neighbor, as a matter of fact. My concern is this. If things go ahead, how does anyone plan on moving the material? By rail, by truck? Right now, I live very close to Mount Trashmore, and half bricks, trash are constantly coming off. Now they come with a little sweeper, they sweep it up. And I've been to a couple of meetings and they promise me the best, but it doesn't really happen. People are people, and when they get hurt in a hurry, that's how it is. If you decide, because right now the garbage trucks come very close to running cars off of King Road, are you going to double it up, make it a 4-lane highway? And if you do, are you going to have to go and take land away from residents And on the Riverview side, you have a senior citizens, you have a daycare, and you also have a area where for endangered species. That might be something you could really be concerned about, because I've worked over 40 years at Great Lakes Steel, and I understand what the pollution and the dirt is. No matter what you try to do, it's in the ground. And if you're moving trucks and rails, you're going to move that pollution again. So I hope everyone stays well, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Rader. Appreciate your comments. Looks like Brian Webb is next. Brian? Where'd he go? Brian disappeared. Where is he?
You hear me now? Hello? Hello?
Brian, is that you?
Yeah.
All right, I can hear you now. If you go ahead and state your name and address, you have the floor.
Okay, you can hear me clearly then?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. My name is Brian Webb at 20271 Maplewood in Riverview. I live a quarter mile from the McLouth site. And first of all, I'd like to applaud the commission and the people that developed the rezoning plan for the prohibited uses stipulated in the proposed waterfront industrial district, specifically Cheers for prohibiting storage of pet coke so that we don't run into the same situation that we saw at the Detroit bulk storage. Furthermore, for prohibiting storage and the import or export of explosives, radioactive materials, and hazardous waste. But I'd especially like to applaud the stipulation to prevent any toxic substances liable to cause death or serious injury to health if inhaled, and I'll repeat that again, if inhaled, swallowed, or through skin absorption. But, however, I have to question how serious Trenton is with preventing the inhalation of toxic substances, not only for Trenton residents, but also for residents of surrounding communities, if the rezoning is approved and the waterfront is rezoned to allow a vehicle mixing center, perhaps steel or ore manufacturing, or even a truck depot. It's public knowledge now that the Wayne County Executive, Crown Enterprise, and perhaps even Trenton officials have already made the decision that the McLouth site will be redeveloped to a vehicle mixing center. And it's also believed by many residents that Sibley Road will be widened to allow a more direct trucking route from the site to I-75, which many of the Trenton residents are concerned about. So I would assume also probably there'd be some rezoning maybe in Riverview to move the entrance to the landfill on the Sibley side, but we'll see. But furthermore, since the truck route would be going through the center of Riverview, that makes me a stakeholder in your decision to rezone. And I am concerned that a vehicle mixing center will make Sibley Road a carbon monoxide corridor when we already have one at I-75 and a lesser one on Ford Street. If you look online for the EPA's carbon monoxide map, you'll see that this area already has a high concentration of carbon monoxide because of industrialization. Therefore, more industrialization is not what we need in this area. If you look at the EPA website, you'll also find a description of these corridors where air pollutants from cars, trucks, and other motor vehicles are found in higher concentrations near major roads. People who live, work, or attend school near major roads appear to have an increased incidence and severity of health problems associated with air pollution exposures related to roadway traffic, including higher rates of asthma, cardiovascular disease, impaired lung development in children, preterm and long-term low birth weight infants, childhood leukemia, and premature death. So those are some very major concerns for us residents in the area. I'd like to finish by saying that if rezoning passes and the site is developed into an industrialized site, then I would urge all local cities to find ways to force.
Thank you, Mr. Webb. Apologize for having to cut you off, but that was 3 minutes. Next is Stephanie Waldrop. We'll try this again. Stephanie,
Hi, this is Stephanie Waldrop. I'm at 3480 Etzel. I did write a letter to the Planning Commission. I dropped it off on Friday and I did not hear my name. So I just wanted to say a couple of things in regards to this meeting. It's all of our jobs and responsibility to protect our city and our land. The citizens have been pretty vocal today about not wanting or needing more toxic substances to be stored near our homes. We have enough of that already, especially with the trash that we get shipped in from Canada. We don't want nor need any more train, truck, or ship traffic. We don't want any more air, water, ground, or noise pollution, which we know will happen if these changes are made. We finally have animals and plants back in the marshes downstream that we haven't had in decades because the area has been so polluted. The citizens want to be able to enjoy and be proud of our city. And if these changes are made, that's not really going to be possible for us. We have the opportunity to make something great of our waterways like Pennsylvania has been able to do. The McLouth property specifically was purchased with the current zoning of mixed use. That might not be what, mixed use is not what it was actually purchased for, but that's not what our concern should be. And that's not the concern of the Trenton City leaders. If we roll over and give these enterprises what they want, what you think they want, what is left for the citizens? We have nothing. Our priority, your priority, city council's priority has to be the citizens, it has to be the city, it has to be nature. We deserve to be able to have clean air and be able to drive on our roadways without getting hit by semi-trucks on a daily basis. I think that we should leave the zoning as mixed use and follow the Trenton Coast Resiliency Master Plan. So thank you for your time and your consideration and one of the most important developments downriver.
Thank you, Ms. Waldrop. Next up, Emily Frascaroli. Emily? Are you there, Emily?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Hi, Emily Frascaroli, 18100 Meridian on Grosse Ile. I want to say, first of all, to the members of the Planning Commission, I thank you for being thoughtful about this and for serving your community in the best way that you know how. I know it's not an easy job, and I don't envy you the decision that you have in front of you. But I would just like to say that I think Mr. Tallarico is doing a good job of convincing you that there's only so much that you can do, and that because of legal reasons, your hands are tied. This is the time when you have to be courageous and you have to take the needs of your community and your people to heart. I haven't heard one comment today in support of the rezoning plan. This is the time and the opportunity for you to question everything, be willing to take risks for the good of your community and to get creative. And I would just ask all of you to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Looks like Colin Cohair is next. Colin?
Hi, Colin Cohair, 9373 Whitehall. I'm your neighbor across from the Trenton Channel in Grosse Ile. And I come from multiple generations of families that have lived in downriver. And I am here with my family, raising my children, playing on the same streets, playing in the same woods, and going to Trenton and using your businesses. And right now you're at a crossroads. You were previously, and you've made the wrong decision, and now you're going to be at another crossroads. So I urge you to listen to the voices being spoken right now and do the right thing. There has been not one instance where someone has said this was going to be a positive move in the direction for this area. This will decimate the area, wildlife, pollution. People talk about jobs that are going to be brought here, but at what cost? What will you destroy in order for corporations to try and dictate what we can do with our land. That's not how this works. We don't live in a fascist society where corporations and billionaires can dictate what we're going to do. So I urge you to do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Coher. Looks like Laurent Chapuis is next, and I apologize if I mispronounced that name.
It's okay. Laurent Chapuis here. I'm at 8600 Church Road in Grosse Hill. So I'm one now in a series of Grosse Hill residents, your neighbors. And I just wanted to say first to thank you for actually having the meeting and having a rezoning commission and an effort trying to solve the issue. The problem that I see is that we're faced with a buyer that bought the property under a particular zoning setup. And they bought it knowing that particular setup. And now we are suddenly faced with the decision that we're trying, in the words of the very word of your consultant, to simply avoid litigation. And I'm maybe paraphrasing a little bit aggressively, but that's basically what it looks like. It looks like, oh, they bought the property, they're going to create legal trouble for us. One of the commentators quoted the family very accurately, saying that if they hear no, they find a way. And that's exactly what it sounds like from our point of view at the moment. And I wanted to echo and simply repeat what the other two ladies that preceded me have said, is that the commission and all the public officials are supposed to be representing the public. And that if Trenton decides to go back on the waterfront and go back to an industrial waterfront, it is so against historical trends of every single community that has a luxury of living on a waterfront. Simply robbing the public from access to the waterfront and getting back to industry is historically incorrect. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chapuis. Oh, I got one hand raised. Jenna Rote.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Jenna.
Awesome. Jenna Rote, 2617 4th Street, Trenton. I would just like to say, as a few people before me have said, we have not heard one person speak up in support of this today. At one point we had, I believe it was over 330 people on this call. I lost track of how many people spoke before me, probably somewhere around 20. And I just want to urge the commission to think about the fact that I think if anyone on this call were in support of this and we're hearing these people speak up and heard we had 150 people write in urging you to vote no, I think someone would have raised their hand to voice their support. So I just want to say, I would urge you to think of the 300 people that didn't speak up are also votes for no. They are people that jumped on here and wanted to hear people speak and maybe thought what they wanted to say had already been said. And I just want to encourage you to think of the sheer volume of representatives of their households. So while it's 150 people wrote in, their households of 4, their households of 6, it's really, really a lot more than just the number that you see on the screen. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rote. I see a name on there that already went, so I'm going to remind everyone that there's only one opportunity to speak tonight. You get one bite at the apple and that's it. Judith Maega.
Hi, thank you all for holding this hearing. Thank you, Commission, for your hard work on this. As one of the previous commenters noted, I am sure that it is not easy. I'm sure you have pressure from all sides and you have some heavy hitters in the game that I'm sure you're very worried about. So with that, I would like to say that the Planning Commission is charged with making changes and considering long-range planning planning for the city of Trenton.
Ms. Maiga, I apologize. I don't mean to interrupt. Could you just, for the record, state your name and address, please?
Yes, I'm sorry. My name is Judy Maiga, M-A-I-G-A. I live at 24655 Lafayette. That is on Groseal.
Thank you.
I am a neighbor. I am a shopper. I am a supporter of your businesses. And I'm very concerned for you, and I'm very concerned for us, and I'm very concerned for residents of Riverview and of Wyandotte, who will all be affected by this. I live on Groseal. If Groseal was doing something that affected the people of Trenton, I would fight for you. And I'm asking you to fight for all of us. As the person at the beginning mentioned, Mr. Tallarico, you're taking one of the most polluted parcels of land, something that's on the NLP. We're spending hundreds of millions of dollars to clean it up, including Superfund money, which belongs to the taxpayers. And then we're going to rezone that property as industrial. That flies in the face of logic to me. It does. You're going to take prime waterfront land and make it into a giant mess again if this is approved. You are not contractually obligated to do this. He bought the property knowing that it was mixed use, and as some of the other people have said, I do not see the rush in going ahead and doing this. There is no harm in waiting. There have been no environmental studies done. There have been no land impact studies done. Prior studies in the area for lighter industry revealed that it would be the smog and pollution levels from the increased truck traffic would be so detrimental to the area that the project was scrapped. So what makes us think that we should go ahead and do the bidding of a company under the fear of getting sued, or I'm not sure what the fear is, but that's not a reason to make a decision. I circulated a petition online. 2,500 people signed the petition. I don't know the exact number, but at least 500 of them are Trenton residents. So their voices, I'm speaking for them tonight too. Not one person has ever approached me and said that they were for this. You really need to think about that. I'm asking you to please take the time to think about it. Rushing to judgment on this could waste that entire area for the next 50 to 100 years, if not longer than that. But there's no harm in waiting. Exclude that portion of land from your decision tonight if you need to. Let further public comment, let further investigation be done on the land. But once the decision is made, we can't go back. So I'm begging you, you are the only ones that have power in this situation. The Planning Commission and the City Council, I'm begging you all to please do what the people are asking you to do. And please wait. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Maiga. That was great timing on your part. Shannon Heffinger is next. Shannon?
Sorry about that. Can you hear me?
Yes.
This is actually Jeff Heffinger. I'm on my wife's Zoom. We are at 2243 West Jefferson. I'm a third generation resident, currently raising my kids here in the city. I urge you to not proceed. I also live next door to the Riverside Hospital that has seen nothing, in quite a while. And this would be a big impact for our city. And I yield the rest of my time.
Thank you, Mr. Heffinger. Larry Latimer is next. Larry, unmute yourself.
Hello, can you hear me?
Can hear you, Larry.
Okay, first of all, I want to say thank you for the opportunity to talk about this. It's something that has been on my mind for quite a while. I've lived on
Mr. Latimer, if you could just state your name and address.
Thank you, I'm sorry. Larry and Carol Latimer, 8887 Woodside Drive, Groseal, Michigan.
Thank you.
I have lived in Groseal for around about 65 years, gone long time, and many friends in Trenton, and Trenton has always been part of living here. This is the worst thing I've seen happen to this area in a long time. And there have been a lot of good points that have come up. No one
is waving a banner to build this site, to convert it into heavy industry again. The comments are made about the Manny Maroon knew that this property was mixed use when he bought it. And I'd be satisfied if we left it there and have an opportunity to develop it into a mixed use property. But to make it industrial, to bring the trucks and the pollution and the dirt and the noise to downriver is just, it's the wrong thing to do. The Planning Commission can do something that's really great and listen to the people and take their feelings into account here. We don't have to go ahead with this. I don't care what they say. Please do not be bullied into following this request. My wife, Carol, and I are strongly opposed to this change in the zoning. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Latimer. I'm going to go off the list here for a minute. We got a email. Kirsten Brockmiller. Kirsten, I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself. Kirsten, are you there? Kirsten, Ms. Brockmiller, we can't hear you. Angela Ventro, my apologies. Ms. Ventro?
Hi, yes, thank you very much for the opportunity to comment on the issue of rezoning the McLouth site. I speak for myself and, oh, I'm sorry, I'm at 2950 Sycamore in Trenton. Sorry about that.
Okay, thank you.
I speak for myself and my partner who lives and works in Trenton, Paul Rupright. We are against this rezoning for all the reasons that everybody else has stated. Environmental concerns, traffic concerns, concerns about what it will do to our roads. I'm raising a child here and I want it to be a nice community for him to grow up in. And I just wanted to echo the sentiments of my neighbors and oppose this rezoning plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ventro. So we got another email. I'm going to try and find. I'm not seeing the name. Kirsten Brockmiller, I see, has joined again. Kirsten, are you able to address the Planning Commission?
I'm having technical problems.
I can hear you right now.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, I was having technical problems. I couldn't figure it out. Thank you for waiting. I just need to pull up my statement. Okay, I'm Kirsten Brockmiller, 3329 Fort Street, Trenton, Michigan. I'm a real estate agent. My family, my tree began back in 1888 when my grandma was born across from what we now call the McLouth Steel property, ended her life across from the International Wildlife Refuge. We've been looking forward to promote, to bring a better economy to our city. November 1st, 2018, Michael Samhat, representing MSC and Crown Enterprises, signed and submitted a request to the city to remove the mixed-use zoning and replace the zoning designation and requirements with I3 heavy industrial zoning for the entire acreage and waterfront at McLouth. After members of the public found out, the matter became a legitimate controversy because of the continued lack of transparency that began with the process of the marketing and selling of the property for a use that it was not zoned for. Mixed-use developments provide jobs for all ages, more diverse job opportunities than industrial zoning can ever provide. November 9th, Council unanimously approved a resolution to move, not reject or approve, their request to the Planning Commission to evaluate. Skip forward to July 2020. During a global pandemic and statewide controversial challenges of social distancing, our city judgment decides it is the perfect time to host a public hearing on the matter. No mention of the private property owner's pending personal request to rezone the McLouth property seems beyond ironic and more so misleading. I urge and I plead the Planning Commission and City Council to honor and respect the Trenton Coast Resiliency Master Plan and advise the owner of the McLouth Steel property to fully respect the mixed-use zoning for redevelopment. He should revitalize the land, not industrialize the land of what remains of Trenton's undeveloped McLouth Steel acreage and waterfront. The University of Southern Mississippi, a member of the National Center for Freight and Infrastructure Research and Education Consortium, reviewed 184 intermodal facilities nationwide. The study was shared at the Center for Logistics, Trade, and Transportation's 2013 conference. Here is what part of their study revealed to their constituents. Ports depreciate the property and show a decline within the immediate 7-mile radius of an actual port. States and the nation benefit the most from port-related development, not the local community that the port is located in. The size of intermodal facilities has little or no relationship to job creation. Large facilities can become efficient with a very small workforce. Changes in intermodal-related employment tracked at the intermodal facility study showed significant job loss and decline 3 to 5 years after opening a port. Ports have weaker economic ties to their home location. The benefits from the port are becoming less distributed locally. And
Thank you, Ms. Brockmiller. Sorry to cut you off. 3 minutes is up. Brian Pollock, he's next on the list. Brian, you unmute yourself.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Brian Pollock. I live at 21878 Knudsen Drive, Groseville, Michigan, so I'm a friend across the canal. I'm also a fellow planning commissioner, so I thank you for your time tonight, and I appreciate it. It's not an easy task. I come here before you to ask you to delay or vote no on the rezoning, specifically based on the waterfront aspects. This goes against the master plan, against the resiliency plan, which was adopted only 6 years ago. So yes, there, as mentioned before, it is a possibility to go against zoning, but something that was just adopted 6 years ago or less, that is still the will of the people. So being able to go against that seems much more contrary. And it's not just the master plan, but this is part of the Downriver Link Greenways and the Iron Bell Trail, which the city of Trenton has been working on to try and become a catalyst for economic development. The city itself just got recognized as a trail town and was specifically looking at the tourism aspects. What will that do by putting in a intermodal port or putting in heavy industrial along the waterfront? How does that impact the wildlife refuge? How does that impact the branding effort that just got underway with Destination Downriver and being able to market the water and trail and the environmental aspects? Every single community along the water is trying to reinvent itself and de-industrialize. This flies in the face of those trends. This was bought with existing zoning, and yes, it is non-residential, but there's lots of other uses that can be used. Retail, office, commercial centers, healthcare, laboratories, it could be light manufacturing. It could be healthcare, hotels, technical schools, golf courses. There was a lot of other uses, a lot of other people with the RFPs for the development that didn't even get to have their voices heard by Wayne County. So again, if it's such an issue to actually make a decision, I urge you to vote no on the specific issue because there's so much more opportunity, and we're looking at the opportunity costs that will be lost if we make this decision today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pollock. We got another email. Thomas Wolsek. Thomas, I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself, and I'll let you know if I can hear you.
Hi, can you hear me?
Mr. Wolsek? I could hear you there for a sec.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, sorry. It was unclear when you raise your hand. I don't have that choice. It it's a thumbs up or a clap thing. But anyways, good evening, Trenton Planning Commission members. I'm Thomas Walsek, owner and resident of 4824 Hillcrest Road in Trenton. I urge you to vote no or not recommend adopting the proposed rezoning ordinance as it is written. I've lived in Trenton almost my entire life, having graduated from the high school here in 2015. My wife and I purchased our family home this summer in the city, and we recently brought home our firstborn son. He's 11 days old today. This is what I'm doing with my night instead of being with him. Doing this because I love this city. It's an attractive place for young families like myself for a good multitude of reasons. And I believe that this proposed ordinance will alter many of these factors that attract young families such as mine to Trenton. Whatever fills this waterfront industrial zone, it's pretty nebulous at this point, whether it's shipping or heavy manufacturing or something else. It will greatly increase traffic into the city. With this increased traffic comes pollution, and it's not just the air pollution, as many has mentioned, but also roadside garbage, noise pollution, etc. My house is not that close to the proposed industrial zone, but many of the houses near and on the way to the zone will likely see their property values decrease. If indeed something as detrimental as this is adopted to the city and allowed to be developed, it would cause both my family and many other young families like mine to reconsider their future in the city. I just moved. I just chose this as my forever home. I don't have to, and I'm not going to raise my children in a place that the air isn't good to breathe or it's moving in the wrong direction. Furthermore, if the commission will not outright reject the entirety, I urge you to amend the proposed ordinance to return the former McLouth Seal site to its current zoning designation as mixed-use zone. Whatever developments could come out of that would be better for the city now and in the future than whatever developments would come as industrial waterfront. And if nothing else, I urge you to make sure that the proposed ordinance requires that whoever owns the property in the waterfront industrial zone must submit a site plan and be subjected to conditional zoning based on that plan. To Mr. Tellericchio's introductory remarks, site plans are required for things in residential objects in the home. It's specifically required for fences per the permit application on the City of Trenton website. This site is too large and too important not to have city oversight and involvement. And a final thought, the McLouth site was purchased in its current zoning designation, so keeping it mixed zone would not warrant any lawsuits. Thank you for your time and consideration, and I yield.
Thank you, Mr. Wolsek. Looks like Stephanie Tucker is next. Apologize. Trying to multitask. Stephanie, are you there?
I'm trying to unmute. Are we unmuted?
I can hear you now.
Stephanie Tucker, 15802 Gulfview Drive, Riverview, Michigan. It's come to my attention that both CSX and Canadian National have been working very hard to increase the number of internodal points across the borders. One must assume that this looks like another opportunity for them to increase their access points. So I'm thinking this must be much greater than just the development of a small site. This is probably international. I would encourage all the residents to engage their congresspeople and let your voices be heard. I appreciate what you're trying to do to make the best decisions for our residents, but I think it's probably bigger than all of us, and so it's going to need all of us to galvanize to prevent this from happening. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tucker. I have Mark Demolis next. Mark. Mr. Demolis, are you there?
There we go. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Can you see me?
No.
I apologize.
But I don't need to see you as long
Okay,
as
very good. Mr. Castle, from 145 Rollrig, Trenton, Michigan. Thank you for your time. My wife and we've built this house. We actually were one of the few residents that were able to purchase a vacant home, or I'm sorry, a vacant lot here in the North Trenton area. I had family members that grew up in this neighborhood back in the 20s, 30s, 40s. We had an opportunity to build this location. I was able to raise my family. Back in 2002, we built the location. We live in a nice colonial home, roughly 1,700 square foot with an attached garage. I am going to say that if for some reason, if the zoning does pass, I know talking to other neighbors, they're very concerned about this whole rezoning. And, talking to these neighbors and my very close friends of mine, they're ready to sell. I mean, they're ready to sell now. And the thing is that why not sell now while we still have equity in the home? We already deal with a lot of traffic from the train, and we're willing to deal with that. We got great neighbors. The trains, and we do have, and I know some people believe that semi trucks don't drive down Sibley. They do, unfortunately. But you know what? Like I said, we have great neighbors here in the city of Trenton, in North Trenton. And, maybe I should call Miss Brockmiller, who is a real estate agent, just probably 3 people in front of you, to sell my house. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Demlis. We did get another email, it looks like, so I'm going to try. Is this Jean Marchak? Ms. Marchak? Having difficulty hearing.
Marchak?
It's not coming through.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Very, very faintly.
Well, everything looks good. Okay, can you hear me now?
I'm sorry, Ms. Marchak, you're not coming through clear enough.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear your sound, but it's not clear. I apologize, Mr. Marchak. I could not make out what you were trying to say. I don't know if you can try and log back in on a different device or something, or possibly call in with your phone or use your phone for audio. But we'll make every effort to let you speak. Tammy Cullen, Tammy.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
All right, my name is Tammy Cullen. I live at 1560 Tall Tree Drive. And the first thing I want to point out is, our city has been sitting on this McLouth property now for more than 20 years. So the fact that we're having a Zoom meeting to discuss this, I think is unacceptable. I think it should be a public hearing. Next, I want to remind this council that we're working for the city of Trenton and not for big corporation. I just want you to consider, I live near the landfill, and I want you to consider the traffic that we're getting now from the landfill. And I can't even imagine what it will be like if this goes through the rezoning, the amount of truck traffic that we're going to get. Also, I know that there's other cities that have dealt with this situation where they have had contaminated land and they haven't sold it out to big corporation or anything. And one instance is the BAS property that's in Wyandotte. Also, in addition to this, I just want to say that as a city, as a resident, I'm kind of embarrassed that all of our neighboring communities are on this Zoom meeting asking us to be good neighbors. I think it's time that we need to consider what's going on with the city of Riverview and the fact that they have a dump and we're constantly fighting with them about that. Matter of fact, they asked for a re-expansion a few years back. Not only did the state, the county, and the DEQ call them bad neighbors. They just said they were doing a terrible job to us. And I just don't want us to be that city that's doing that to our own neighbors. Like others at this meeting, I'm asking this committee to stand up for the citizens and please vote no. You need to think more about the long-term effects that this is going to do on our city than the liability that comes with it. I promise you that everyone who's on this and the surrounding cities will stand up with you and fight for this. So I'm just asking you to please consider everyone, not just the city of Trenton, but all of our committees, or I'm sorry, all of our all of the cities around us. And thank you for taking the time to listen to me.
Thank you, Ms. Collin. Next up, Sophie Radakovich. Sophie, can you hear me? You don't look like you're muted. Sophie, are you there? If you are, we can't hear you, so I'm going to move on for the time being. We got a request from Edith Traster. Edith, I did find your phone number. I'm going to try and unmute you right now. Ms. Traster?
Yeah, this is Edith Traster at 2645 Riverside Drive, apartment 1113, Trenton, Michigan. I really appreciate being able to speak. I'm strongly against rezoning the McLouth property. I want it to stay multi-use. When the consultant was speaking earlier, one of the terms that I wrote down was that the Planning Commission is supposed to zone due to public health, and I believe that rezoning this to rezoning it to industrial is not going to be in the interest of public health. I agree with many of the comments that were already made, and I strongly support voting against rezoning this to industrial. Thank you.
Thank you. Robert Barrett. Mr. Barrett?
Yeah, this is Robert Barrett. Can you hear me?
I can. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Robert Barrett, 27163 Loma Court in Groseal. Thank you for giving me the time to make my statement here. And good evening, everybody downriver, because this is what this is all about. It's all of us downriver. It's not just Trenton. It's everybody downriver. I just want to say, make it very clear. I've worked for this maroon company. I've worked for him for 11 years. There's no integrity in this company, and it's Matt the Stun is running it now. There's no integrity, no honor. They will sign anything. They will tell you, they will promise you the moon. Honor nothing. And I can't stress that enough. You're dealing with the devil here. Dealing with the devil. I urge you to strongly vote no. Come up with some other legitimate company to deal with besides this guy. I know he's the owner, but he doesn't play fair at all, at all. And I just want to make that clear. And thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the time.
Thank you, Mr. Barrett. Okay, we're going to try this again. Sophie Radakovich, it looks like I can ask you to unmute yourself, so let's try it.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can.
You can?
Yes, I can.
Oh, great. I live at 2675 Toledo Street on the southeast end of Trenton. If the railroad track was not blocked, I would be able to walk to the International Wildlife Refuge. It's not that far. And I live, close to the bike trail and Elizabeth Park and the bridge, everything. I've lived here on the southeast end for over 47 years. And when this little area was a nice little 5 to 7 acre farm area, and then this was zoned industrial over 50 years ago, and it has taken almost 50 years for this area to actually be able to breathe and to have recreation, you know, where we can go down to the parks where it's nice. Even though you have Chrysler on one end and DTE nearby, it's nice. We have Lions Park and then the other ballpark. I would hate to have that area in McLouth Steel become industrial. It is just going to be devastating to the houses and the property in that area. That's what I have to say.
Thank you very much, Mr. Radakovich. I am going to pause for a second. We did get a request to open the chat function in the Zoom meeting room. We're not going to do that. It would be like opening Pandora's box, too many possibilities for inappropriate remarks. So everyone is welcome to speak tonight, but there will be no chat room we're not going to utilize that function. So thank you. Sarah Ream, you're next.
Hi. Yes, my name is Sarah Ream. I'm at 1827 Edsel Street, and I have a 4 and 6 year old. I moved here because I grew up downriver. I moved away for 17 years to another state, came back because I love this area. I am strongly opposed to this, just as everyone else is. They bought it knowing what that land was, knowing that it's mixed use. As a parent of kids, I tell my kids sometimes you don't throw a fit. I think that this is probably for money, and that hasn't had anything on it. My understanding was that it was, the land even had like heavily back taxes that were owed, and our city still has phenomenal schools, wonderful police. Like, it's a city that I'm proud to live in. So I don't see what the hurry is. The land cleanup would be the same currently as it would be with the rezoning, is my understanding. So it's not like they need to plan differently for how they're going to clean up the land. And I do also think that probably a number of people couldn't get on this call or didn't even know about it. And maybe having something in person would let a lot of other people speak up. But I appreciate Trenton, Riverview, everyone else downriver, your representation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms.
This is Emily, and I hope kids want to be safe, healthy, and also playful and gentle.
My daughter asked me if we could speak up, so sorry. That's Emily.
No need to apologize. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily.
And Sarah Ream is my mommy.
All right, thanks, guys.
Bye.
So I am going to address a couple of recent comments that we've had regarding the Zoom meeting. I know this is not ideal, but it's what we're stuck with under the circumstances. It's perfectly legal for us to meet like this. And it's not ideal, like I said. It would not be legal for us to meet in person, given the restrictions on the number of people that are allowed inside public buildings. We just couldn't do it. There's still 233 people in this room. We would still be well over the limit of 10 that we have right now in Southeast Michigan. So I apologize that we had to do it this way, but it is what it is with what we're dealing with from a public health perspective. So I just wanted to get that out there. We did have another email, so I'm going to look up a participant here, Lori Mosley. Give me a second to find you, Lori. Ask you to unmute yourself. Ms. Mosley?
Hear me okay?
I can hear you, yes.
Hi, Lori Mosley, 1681 Edsel. Thank you for taking the time to listen to me. I know it's been a long evening, and I'll just echo the sentiments of my fellow neighbors. I'd like to express mine and that of my family, the strong opposition to the proposed ordinance. Members of the community, you have a moral obligation to the citizens and taxpayers of Trenton and to really the neighbors of this area that have our best interests at hand when making these decisions. We do not need more heavy industrial. You know, our family has 3 kids in the school district for 10 years. We've planted our roots here. We would like to continue to do so, but we will, as we've heard others, we do not work in the area and we would put our home up for sale. We don't want to, but we really have to think of the health of our family. And if anything, that the current pandemic that we are in is showing each of us, the world, that life, economy, our health is of the utmost importance, and that the decisions made by political leaders from federal all the way down to the city level have a life and death impact on our communities. So we understand the fiscal implications of this. We understand you have to balance city budget, capture tax revenue, while keeping the best interests of the residents at hand. But that's what City of Riverview said. And guess what? They have a massive landfill in the middle of their community that we have to deal with the noxious odors already on a daily basis, vibrations from truck traveling down our streets, environmental impacts from diesel emissions. So again, I just echo the sentiments of the citizens within Trenton and locally. Please oppose this. And I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Mosley. Jonna Burbeck. Jonna, you're next.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Ms. Burbeck.
Okay, my name is Jonna Burbeck. I live at 8144 Harbor Point in Grosse Ile. Me and my family just moved here 3 summers ago. We're new to downriver, but I am a PhD chemist. And I can tell you exactly what will happen to this site if you go through with industrial. As everybody has spoke, the environmental impacts will be huge. Not only to mention is that this site is going to need to be checked for years because it's a Superfund site. Think about what this industry will bring up that may not be coming to the surface on what they're testing already. By moving to industrial, it's going to cause more problems. Think about how popular the river is for fishing. That fishing is going to disappear. There's so many other economic things that are here that are going strong, even during these hard times, that will disappear by making this an intermodal shipping port or allowing for something like this to happen. I mean, you really have to think about how it's going to affect your city and the surrounding cities, and how many people I've just sitting here hearing are going to move and leave your town due to this coming in if it happens. It's things that you have to think about. And being mixed use, there's so many more opportune things that can bring more jobs that's going to be healthier for the community to come in. So I would just like to say that even though I don't live in Trenton, I am directly impacted by this decision. And I really feel that an industrial waterfront is not the right decision. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Burbeck. Arlie Strasser. Arlie, you are up. I ask you to unmute yourself.
Hi. At this point in the evening, I was actually trying to ask some procedural things about whether we could contact each other or you through chat, but you and I was excuse me. I think I need to drink some water. Maybe could you come back to me? I'm sorry. My voice is really
sure. If you're going to make a public comment, we'll come back to you. Travis and Jennifer Knight.
Hello, can you see me, hear me?
I can hear you just fine, yes.
Awesome, great, thanks. So thank you for letting us have some public comment on this. My name is Jennifer Knight. I live at 4804 Hillcrest in Trenton. First of all, just Planning Commission, I would really love for you to consider the optics of this. There is no benefit for the community with this decision. It doesn't sound like you've done any of the studies people before me have mentioned. It does seem, I know you mentioned that, right now we are doing this Zoom meeting because of the restrictions for in-person meeting, but it doesn't sound like we need to have this meeting right now. It's still optics. It doesn't look good. We don't need to rezone this land to make it a viable property. Matty Maroon knew what he was buying when he bought it. And he probably banked on the fact that he would be able to put some pressure to get that rezoned. So it does, again, optics, it looks like we're trying to avoid legal pressure from a powerful entity. It looks like we are sacrificing our community to corporate interests. Trenton is one of the nicest communities downriver. It's why I moved here, but I will move out wherever there is a nice community. So if Trenton changes, I will move out, and I know a lot of people will as well. Industrial waterfront is not forward thinking. You're going to make this decision, Planning Commission, you're going to make this your legacy. Make sure, and City Council, make sure that you make the right decision for the sustainability of this community, and please, please vote no on rezoning. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Knight. I'm going to go back to Mr. Marchak. I'm going to see if we can hear him this time. Mr. Marchak, are you able to unmute yourself? Mr. Marchak, you're still not coming through clearly.
Oh my God.
I can hear you a little bit now.
Well, try taking my. Okay, can you hear me now? Speak louder. Can you hear me?
Not clearly, no.
Can you hear me?
A little bit.
Can you hear me?
It's getting better.
Okay. All right. I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
I can hear you a little bit right now. If you wanna go for it.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Go ahead if you would state your name and address.
Okay, can you hear me? I live at 3404 Southland Court, and I am begging the committee not to change the current mixed use designation. There's almost 300 acres mostly on waterfront. I do understand that it is owned by Crown. I fail to understand how the property went from McLouth to the city of Trenton to Wayne County back to Crown. I really don't get that. But I think the Port of Detroit, if you go towards Grand Boulevard on Jefferson, that site is what you're going to look like. It is a huge monstrosity. In case you've been wondering, mixed use allows buildings, more than one building, different land use. We are planned. Residents of McLouth Steel, fully cleaned up. I understand Crown owns it. You cannot, in all honesty, be legitimate city officials and ruin Groseal Township, the city of Riverview, and on and on and on. Air quality, water quality, land conservatory, etc. trucks on the road, trucks that are blocking everything. It is unimaginable how much degradation will take place if this is allowed to continue. If you change, you're changing back to the way it was, and the way it was not good. McLouth was an eyesore from day one. It was good for the 300 plus employees, or perhaps 3,000. But once it went down, and now it has been torn down, there is a way to improve on it. The improvement will not take place if Crown Enterprises builds a intermodal shipping. You will have trucks, containers, on and on, roads ripped. Just a terrible scenario. Hope you do the right thing. I'm done.
Thank you, Mr. Marchek.
Can you hear me now?
I can still hear you. Did we mute him? Okay. All right, back to my list here. Kelly Amison is next. Kelly, I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I got too quick with the button there. Go ahead and unmute yourself again.
Okay, how's that? Are we on?
There you go, I can hear you.
Okay, thank you. My name is Kelly Amison. I live at 1861 Baldwin Drive here in Trenton. Thank you for doing this forum for us to be able to speak our piece, and let it be known that nobody in Trenton is in favor of reindustrializing our waterfront. I don't have a prepared statement. I've just been coming up with thoughts, listening to other residents from Trenton and surrounding communities, and I thank them all for their input. We've been burdened by the industry in McLouth for decades, and we've finally been liberated by having the building torn down, and we are blessed with an opportunity that will never, ever come our way again. It is crucial to make the right decision and not reindustrialize that area. Mr. Maroon and company have a terrible track record for completing projects. They let properties lay to waste forever. They can't be trusted. They don't do what they'll say. They have more money than anybody could ever dream of. Our city would be bankrupt trying to fight them in court. But we cannot allow them to bully us and push us into decades and decades of more misery with industry. Mixed use would bring jobs from multiple businesses, not just one company. If he decides to pull out, he can pull out anytime, and that property will lay in ruins again. He doesn't have to do anything with it. He can let it sit there forever. Now we need to keep it into a place where shop owners, medical centers, entrepreneurs, offices, nautical businesses, tech schools, so many different things can come in and develop in there. There's no rush to go on this, because once we do this, we can't go back. There's no do-over button for this. We are so blessed to have a waterfront community, and we need to use it wisely. I'm begging you to consider the long-term implications. We don't need a one giant employer who will bring in people from all over the place to work there. If we have smaller shops, we'll have people from Trenton and our surrounding communities that will be able to work there. And if one of those shops pulls up stakes or for whatever reason fails, that's just one business that fails. It's not the entire kit and caboodle. One business may fail, but dozens of others will continue to thrive. I don't think they'll fail, though. I think people are all rooting for this area to be developed, and I think people will come from all over to bolster them, to get them a chance to do well. We don't have, Maroon doesn't have a dog in this fight. He couldn't care less how long that property sits and what happens to the communities around it. We all do have our lives, our livelihoods to fight for. As everyone has said, the traffic, the lack of studies, there's nothing that's been done yet to prove that that's the only.
Thank you, Ms. Amison. Sorry to cut you off. 3 minutes is up, though. I have next on my list, I just have a first initial, so Mr. or Mrs. Trevino, I ask you to unmute yourself.
Hi. I'm hearing what everyone is saying, and let me tell you that I can speak.
Ms. Trevino, if you could state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Patty Trevino. I'm at 28660 Swan Island Drive in Groseal.
Thank you.
I'm from and grew up in Southwest Detroit, where Matty Maroon owned the bridge. And you could just Google his name. Please, I beg of you, look at Curb Detroit, Metro Times, Detroit News, Detroit Free Press. He does whatever he wants. That company does what they want. They put in gas pumps for the bridge with no permits. They closed the street of St. Anne's in Detroit with no permission. They started building a bridge to nowhere with no permission. My fear for the residents that live in the Trenton area is that we're talking a company that, and a family that's worth $1 billion. And they can pay whatever fine you give them. That's a little scary. Trenton is a great community. I'm there all the time. But if this gets rezoned, I fear for the communities of Wyandotte, Riverview, Trenton, Groseal, because I don't know how you're going to regulate that company. Please look at his history, look at his relationship with Southwest Detroit, call their community leaders. They will give you an earful of information about the Maroon companies and the Ambassador Bridge and all the things that have happened for tens and tens and tens of years. Even purchasing property in that area and just letting it sit vacant. There's so many things that I fear for the city of Trenton. And that's why I just wanted to get on this call, because I grew up right by that bridge. And if you even go to I believe it Curb Detroit in January of 2020 has an article, and it's how the Maroons became Detroit's least trustworthy family. Look in the Metro Times in, I believe last week, wrote another article about his relationship with the community. If you're looking at anything, please look at that. History speaks volumes. The people in Southwest Detroit went head to head with the companies that are owned by Maroon for many, many years. I believe they're still trying to close St. Anne's Street, which is a street in Southwest Detroit that leads from Verner Highway to 4th Street. And it's the only street that has clear access, and they wanted to close that so the bridge could expand. And I'm just very fearful.
Thank you, Ms. Trevino. Sorry to cut you off. It's been 3 minutes. We're going to move on to the next speaker, and I am contemplating taking a brief recess. We've been at it for almost 3 hours, so I would again encourage you to, if the comments have been made, for the sake of all of our time, keep your comments brief. Maureen Flavin, Ms. Flavin.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes. You have the
Okay,
floor.
my name is Maureen Flav, and I live at 17550 Park Lane in Groseal, Michigan. I don't want to reiterate what everybody else said, but I'm wholeheartedly behind all the other comments the folks said. But the one thing that I didn't hear about was downtown Trenton. You have a sweet, quaint little downtown Trenton, just like Wyandotte has. But a lot of your businesses are leaving downtown Trenton, and I don't understand why you would want to make industrial use on the waterfront when you have a sweet downtown where businesses are leaving, and you should be actually doing things to bring businesses into that area. So I didn't hear anybody say that. And then the other thing I wanted to say is that I'm originally from Pittsburgh. And if you look at Pittsburgh, Pittsburgh has done tremendously wonderful things with their old mill sites. And they're incredibly popular and they're financially sound. And I would ask you to go and look at that city as well. But as far as downtown Trenton goes, I just don't understand why you would want to put an industrial site right against a sweet little quaint downtown that you're trying to build and businesses are already leaving.
Thank you, Ms. Flavin. I'm gonna take a couple more email requests. We got Roberta Urbani, Miss Urbani. Are you there?
Yep, I'm here. Oops.
You're on.
Hi, my name is Roberta Urbani. I live at 29815 East River Road on Groseal. A couple things that I want to say. One is Mr. Tellerico said in his opening remarks that the proposed zoning ordinance has prohibited many activities that were actually allowed in the current zoning ordinance, and so therefore that's an improvement. But I don't understand why these prohibited activities can't be included in a new zoning ordinance that would exclude reindustrializing the waterfront. So that's one thing. The other thing is that the Maroon family, they really have Trenton in a bind because they spent money and they have a commitment. I really don't know how they can be extracted without a ton of money, but we need to figure that out because for all the reasons that people said. The Maroon family could have been the Scrooge of Southeast Michigan if he had seen his ghosts and changed his personality and his attitude. And we can hope that Manny Maroon will do that. That's all I have to say, though.
Thank you. Let's take one more and then we're going to have a brief recess, I believe. Melissa Weidendorf. Ms. Weidendorf.
Hi there. Good evening, council members. Thank you for
name and address.
For taking my call. My husband and I just bought our first house at 2604 Chelsea this past December. I've been a downriver resident my whole life. Just wanted to take the opportunity to echo the sentiments regarding the negative long-term environmental impacts. We think it's extremely important to know if this would eliminate any progress made regarding environmental mitigation. That's about all I have. Very proud to be in a city that supports the environmental issues. And again, thanks again.
Thank you, Ms. Weidendorf. We got only a couple more with their hands raised, so why don't we take a shot here. Michael DeJulian, Mr. DeJulian.
It's Michelle.
Oh, Michelle, I apologize.
That's
Miss
okay.
DeJulian.
Yes. Michelle DeJulian, and my current address is 7761 Ferry Road on Groseal. However, I was born and raised in Trenton for 23 years. And I have worked there for over 25 years. So it's very near and dear to my heart. I just wanted to start by saying that although I appreciated Mr. Tellerico's history lesson at the beginning of this meeting, I just felt like a lot of his, the language he used, there was a lot of fear embedded in what he was trying to relate to us. And no one ever makes good decisions when they're feeling fearful, which might have been the council's first mistake in going into this agreement. But he also said that there was never agreement by Crown to bring it up to residential standards. And there was also never an agreement by Trenton to rezone. So I agree with everybody tonight on voting no, but I also want to remind the Planning Commission that your job, your charge, is to make sure that you are making decisions that not only consider, but protect the property values of all of your residents and provide them a quality of life that they would want to continue to be part of the community and feel that they have a presence and a place there. And just as someone mentioned earlier, you can't improve economic development and quality of life if there are no businesses that want to come and be in Trenton, because businesses want to be where people want to be living. And so that's really going to not promote employment and economic well-being by rezoning. You're also supposed to be making decisions that connect people to the community that they're living in and that they feel they have a say. And in this forum for reaching consensus tonight, with only 300 and some people attending, there are so many people, you know, my parents, other people's parents that are unable to kind of achieve this venue and be a part of this. I don't think there's any way you could leave here tonight and vote anything but no, knowing that so many people, everybody is against this. You also have a charge to make a decision that reduces the environmental damage and conserves the resources in the area. And so with those tasks as a planning commission, there's no possible way that you could consider anything but no. I appreciate your time and thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Julian. I'm going to do one more and then we'll recess till 10 o'clock, I think. So Karen Bankovich, Ms. Bankovich.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can. You have the floor.
Okay. I live at 2950 High Meadow, and I just wanted to make my statement that my husband and I are opposed to the rezoning of the waterfront property. I think the increased truck traffic and negative environmental impacts will be detrimental to Trenton and its residents. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Bankovich.
Thank you.
Okay, I am going to call a brief recess. We can use the restroom if you need to use the restroom, grab a drink or a snack. Hopefully we're not here too much longer, but we will reconvene at 10 o'clock. We are recessed. All right, we're back. It's 10 o'clock. I'm just trying to stay on track here. We'll go back to, we're still in the public hearing. So next on the list, Greg Karmazin. Greg, ask you to unmute. Mr. Karmazin, are you there? All right, we'll try the next one on our list.
Oh, I'm here.
Oh, there you are. Okay.
I got you.
I hear you.
Yeah, sorry about that. I was just stepped out for a second.
I figured that might have been the case.
Right. So, Greg Karmazin, I'm a taxpayer at 21228 East River Road, Grosse Ile. And I am a board member of the Grosse Ile Civic Association. And of course, our president, Bill Heil, spoke earlier tonight. My family's lived on Grosse Ile for past 94 years. I have a long-term understanding of the history of the area, and certainly understand the dilemma that Trenton faces in this project. My family actually moved to the island before McLouth even existed. So when I was talking to my father, who grew up on Grosse Ile, he actually remembered that area before McLouth even existed. And it's interesting to ponder how the fate of this region would have changed had that project not been built. But in any case, I want to emphasize that we heard some fantastic comments tonight from residents in Trenton, Grosse Ile, Riverview. I mean, this kind of spirit working together for regional cooperation, economic development, that's exactly what we need. We got to break down these artificial boundary lines that have kept this area from maximizing its growth potential and making the better decisions that we've seen made in regional economic development planning in other areas of Michigan and around the country. I definitely want to reiterate and emphasize what Jamison Yeager said earlier. Jamison is a candidate for Grosse Ile Township Board, and that vision that he put forth tonight about working on a regional economic development plan that would involve Grosse Ile, Trenton, Riverview. Our organization, the Grosse Ile Civic Association, would be very much in support of that, and I think you'd find that there's a new spirit of cooperation in the area, that it's time for us to work together on these kinds of projects and not just say it's a Trenton problem, a Riverview problem, or a Grosse Ile problem. And it's unfortunate that Grosse Ile hasn't been at the table at this project. It was largely, I think, our leaders that decided not to do that. And hopefully we will have some new leadership in the future that will see the value of regional cooperation and economic development. The one thing I think I can offer tonight that's different than what everyone else has talked about is that the Civic Association did some research into how we got to the point that we are today. And I extensively researched we FOIA requested documentation on the RFQ that Wayne County put together. And it was very interesting to find out that there was no mention of the mixed use zoning or the EPA Superfund or the potential to have this site redeveloped as a mixed use project when this was going through the RFQ.
I'm sorry, Mr. Karmazin, but I had to cut you off. 3 minutes was up. I would have liked to hear your comments, but if I make an exception for one, I have to make an exception for all. So we'll move on. Amy Lester, Miss Lester, you'll unmute yourself.
Hi, my name's Amy Lester. I'm a homeowner in Trenton at 2251 Glenwood. And I appreciate the work of the commission and what they did to get here. I also understand the appeal of having one overhaul of all the zoning to be able to look and to see what we need to do in the whole city of Trenton. And, I also saw, there were a lot of good things that I also saw in the zoning presentation. And I hope that, through the controversy of the McLouth site, they don't get lost. The things that were mentioned
you know, about the wetlands and also about, you know, getting rid of the office zone to have a real downtown. So I think it's important that those things can move forward. But I don't think that going to from mixed use to industrial waterfront is the right thing to do at the north end of Trenton. I really liked hearing some of the things that the chemist and the people were saying about Pittsburgh and the other kind of updates that could be done in the city. And I just think that, you know, going to a more industrial point of view isn't where the rest of the world is headed. And, you know, I feel like the industrial waterfront and the protections they put in for toxic business going on there, it seems like a good compromise position, but I don't feel like that our back should be against the wall at this point. If it's currently mixed use, then there shouldn't be a reason that we have to go. We shouldn't feel that we're in a position that we need to make a compromise. So I would say that we need to vote against going to the industrial waterfront rezoning. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lester. We have one hand raised. Ann Christie. Miss Christie, are you there?
I am. I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. You have the floor.
Hi. I hate to be the last person because I don't have a lot of legal information, chemical information. I've lived in Downriver. I've lived in Wyandotte. I've lived
Ms.
in
Christie,
Southgate.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Just for the record, your address, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. 8197 Halcyon Court, Groseal, Michigan.
Thank
I
you.
apologize.
Thank you.
I have lived in most areas in Downriver. I've lived in Wyandotte. I've lived in Southgate. I now live in Groseal. My daughter lives in Riverview, quite where McLouth still is currently. I appreciate you hearing all of us. Let me start by saying that I'm not so foolish to believe that they're going to put a park or something similar to that in that area. There's got to be something in between a park and what they're talking about putting there right now. There's no way that we as a community can't come together and realize that there are better things that can be done with that park. Eddie Maroon, I've worked in industries that have dealt with Matty Maroon. I know what he does. Things do not work out when he takes over. It's a sad commentary on our Downriver area that he believes that he can trash it in the way that he is considering trashing it, and he will. Thank you for letting me speak, and thank you to everybody else that has spoken. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Ms. Christie. Early Strasser. Ms. Strasser, are you there? You unmute yourself.
Yes, I just, thank you. I'm sorry, I was having trouble with my voice before.
It's okay.
1 second, I'm just gonna sit. My name is Early Strasser. I live at 24356 East River Road, Groseal. And I've appreciated so much of the comments that so many people have made. And I wish, I was assuming that because we had limited time that there would be an ability to communicate with each other through the chat. And so I felt like we've been at a real disadvantage that you chose not to let us do the chat. But anyway, and also because there's so many people in this group I would like to be in touch with. Excuse me. And I think it's important for us to take the long view on this. With all the environmental concerns and the brilliant minds who are adding, their information, both historical and future oriented. I think, I really hope you listen and, take, I was almost thinking of volunteering to put a spreadsheet together of all the different points that people have brought up. And but I think one of the things that's missing is that maybe the Planning Commission has no other ideas for how the property could be used. And maybe we're all at a loss for not having had the chance to brainstorm because this got pushed through so quickly. A lot of us are just floored that the Maroon Company was even able to do this, to get to this point. So, but we have urban planners who are quite brilliant and creative and, you know, really artistic in their ways of thinking about how land should be used, how urban areas and suburban and rural areas can be used. We can do design and there's so much brainstorming that could go on to find out, you know, to put for. I was worried about the timing. I know I'm kind of speaking slowly, but there's so many ideas that could be put forth for brainstorming and coming up with some other alternatives. Within the restrictions that we have, I'm sure that we can find some far better uses for this than what this proposal, you know, is trying to do. And the Maroon Company is so. Matty Maroon has been so historic. I agree so much with the people who know of him and the horrible things he's done to the city of Detroit and the whole area, that we, you know, need to educate ourselves about.
Thank you, Ms. Strasser, for your comments. I apologize for cutting you off, but it has been 3 minutes. I'm looking at the list of participants, which is currently at 179, and I don't see any hands raised at the moment. This would be a last opportunity if you would like to provide comments to the PC. Please raise your hand. There's Ms. Strasser. I'm sorry, I can't give you a second opportunity to talk. All right, there's a couple. Aaron Rouse. Aaron Rouse, Ms. Rouse, you unmute yourself.
Hello, how are you?
Good evening, Ms. Rouse.
Good evening. I did just want to say that I am echoing everyone else's comments and concerns.
Ms. Rouse, real quick, could you please state your address?
Oh, sorry. 3060 Maxwell, Trenton.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry about that. I do echo everyone else's concerns, and I don't want to repeat everything again, but I do want to put another family's name down for the public comment, that we are very concerned about this property and what will be done with it and the future property values for our house, our family, our neighborhood, and what that would mean for our future in the city. And that is all I have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Rouse.
Thank you.
Diane Mamo. Diane, if you unmute yourself. Ms. Mamo?
Yes, I'm here.
Very good. You have the floor.
Thank you. 9405 Highland, Groseal. I actually live right down the street from McLouth. I've been watching them tear it down. I just wanted to say thank you so much for letting us have an opportunity to join in on this. And my brother actually works at one of the shipping companies in Seattle. And he spoke to me about it. And I'm not sure if people understand exactly how loud it is. He said he wears earmuffs. He said the cans smash together at all times of the day and night. The lights are bright. The pollution is horrible. The railroad, of course, is going to be backed up. The ships, the bridge. All of these items need to be considered. And I realized right in the beginning, the gentleman said that both the trains and the shipping is out of our control, but the property isn't. And that's the thing we need to remember, the property isn't. And I know Mr. Maroon, he was trying to do the bridge. He tried to do the bridge over us, under us. I don't know if this is his way of getting back at us, but if we could possibly just stall until maybe he'll forget about it and do something else, because he's got plenty of money to do other businesses. I really think that this is not going to be good for anybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Mammal. Craig Pilkington. Mr. Pilkington, if you'll unmute yourself, you can have your 3 minutes.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Craig Pilkington. I live at 27985 South Point. I'm Groseal. I'm also a member of the board of directors of the Groseal Civic Association, and I apologize for showing up tonight unshaven. I hadn't really planned on this. I want to first of all caution, and I don't want to be redundant, if the Planning Commission has taken a very close look at the bulk material storage ordinances that were implemented by the city of Detroit 3 to 4 years ago that prohibited a dramatic number of what had been historic uses along their waterfront, and put into effect enforcement methods of enforcement and audit that really made continuing that type of activity in the traditional sectors of the Detroit waterfront unattractive and less profitable. I think that Trenton should certainly do that. If you have not taken a look at that and modeled yours after it, please do. It will protect us. The second thing is that there are things going on and actors involved in this, I think, beyond those that we know. And one of them is the Detroit-Wayne County Port Authority. And if you have not looked into the powers that they have under the enabling authority, you should. It now includes public-private partnership, and they are crafting a narrative and going literally to Washington. And I wonder, with a plan for the Port of Detroit that includes the McLouth site, and I want to read briefly something from their strategic report that was published in 2019. The former McLouth Steel site in Riverview, Trenton, is being redeveloped by Crown Enterprises. The site is 275 acres and includes dockage and rail access to roadway. DWCPA's services, that's the Detroit-Wayne County Port Authority,
Mr. Pilkington, we may have lost you. Mr. Pilkington, I'm sorry, but I think we lost your connection. Are you there, Mr. Pilkington? Can't even mute him.
Patricia Hardick is trying to raise the hand with the clap.
Okay. I'm going to go to the next on our list, and Kathleen Quirk. Miss Quirk.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes, I can. You have the floor.
Okay, thank you, Aaron. I appreciate your time and effort here. I just want to suggest a process improvement.
Ms. Quirk, real quick, just your address for the record.
Oh, I apologize. 3506 Greenview, Kathleen Quirk.
Thank you.
Trenton, Michigan. I've seen a lot of people on the video who have been raising their hand to their camera. And I think for future meetings, it needs to be explained that you need to activate the participants panel to raise your hand digitally. So I think a lot of people have misunderstood how that works, and they've been trying to get heard and get in line to be to have their 3 minutes. but because they weren't instructed at the beginning how to raise their hand digitally in the meeting, they have not had that opportunity. So I just wanted to give that feedback, and my time is done, and please go on to the next person.
Thank you, Ms. Quirk. I am doing the best I can, but it's challenging to keep time and watch. But yeah, for clarification, there is a function in the Zoom meeting. You can raise your hand, and that's what I can see on my screen. I can't see 175 different computer screens at the same time, so I'm looking at a list of names. And if your hand is raised, that's how I can see who wants to make a comment. Mr. Pilkington, I'm going to try to go back to you, but you have about 30 seconds left of your time.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. You got 30 seconds.
Very good. I guess the point being that the Detroit-Wayne County Port Authority is not representative of downriver. You have 2 members appointed by the city of Detroit, 2 by Wayne County, and 1 by the state of Michigan. None live downriver. They control the waterways. They will control the Trenton Channel. They will control everything from advocacy for expansion of churning basins to closures of the toll bridge. We need to be attentive to that and possibly take the time to learn more about what their powers are going forward.
Thank you, Mr. Pilkington. All right, let me readjust my timer here. Should be. I'm not sure. I know we had a Robert Johnson speak earlier this meeting. Again, unless it's a different Robert Johnson, I can't tell that. But you only get 1 opportunity to address the PC. So Patricia Harding, Ms. Harding, are you there?
Yes, I am. Thank you for letting me speak. My address is 2357 Ashby. I have provided you with written comments, so I'll be very brief. I just want to point out 3 things. First of all, the current cleanup that is going on at the McLouth site is not the Superfund cleanup. So the current cleanup is being done under a consent agreement between the EPA and McLouth, so that I'm sorry, not McLouth, EPA and the Maroon organization, so that they would not be considered a potentially responsible party. And so they're doing a cleanup at that level that was set by the agreement. However, if you do rezone the property from mixed use to industrial waterfront, what will happen is when the Superfund cleanup does begin, the cleanup that the EPA does, the cleanup that is done by money that is spent by taxpayers that all of us will fund, if you rezone to industrial waterfront, the cleanup will only be to industrial, and it will not be to the mixed use level that is a higher level of cleanup for human use. The other thing that will happen is if you rezone that particular property is that you will have excluded all other possibilities and redevelopment options that could come along in the future. Second thing I want to point out is currently there is no active industrial use on the entire Trenton waterfront, other than the bulk storage by levee and the decommissioning of the DTE site. So I am proposing not only do you keep the mixed use zoning at the McLouth site, but you also take the property south of Elizabeth Park that is currently unused industrial property, also rezone that mixed use, because that's right next to the International Wildlife Refuge, and we would then have an unbelievable opportunity for waterfront redevelopment. The good news is that we've got some good corporate partners that currently own that land down there, and they would probably be willing to work with some of the other regional development plans that are going on for all of Southeast Michigan waterfront currently. So let's think about that. And then finally, the third thing I want to just mention is, you know that the Michigan zoning statute requires that you develop a zoning plan to promote the public health, safety, and welfare. Nowhere in the statute does the zoning say that any zoning should be developed to prevent being sued or to do away with any litigation threat. So in my written statement, I did attach some case law for you. The Grand Sakwa versus Northfield Township case. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hardig. Sorry to cut you off. I got to stay consistent, though. Steve Bradford, Mr. Bradford, unmute yourself, and you can have your 3 minutes.
Hello, my name is Steve Bradford. I'm at 1803 Edsel, Trenton. I agree with all comments made tonight. On behalf of my family and I, we ask you to vote no to rezoning. Environmental, community, traffic, and overall quality of life. We've lived here since 2016, have invested a lot of money into our family home. Our children have flourished at the schools here, and we love our community. We love Trenton. We want to live in a community that has elected leaders who will fight for their people and stand up to large corporations. And hopefully it'll still be Trenton. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bradford. I got one hand raised right now that I can see. Jack Eggleston. Mr. Eggleston.
Yes, I'm Jack Eggleston, 2231 Westfield. And I would urge you to vote no to rezone now. Government is of, by, and for the people, and it's pretty clear, you know, what the people in the community are saying. And I'm sure there are more that would say the same thing. But we need more information. We need to know what's the result of the environmental study and all of that. And second, regarding vision, Trenton has within it Dr. John Hartig, who's an expert on waterfront redevelopment. And it would be tragic for us to consider any kind of rezoning without consulting Dr. Hartig and things that he's actually written in a book. He is a resident of Trenton, and I would dare say that if he were approached, that he would have some input on that and have actually examples and how things were funded in order to make the waterfront work for the people in the city of Trenton. So I would urge that you vote no, and I believe that is the will of the people, as we can see tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Eggleston. I did just get a note that somebody was raising their hand on a video. Travis and Jennifer Knight. I think we heard from Jennifer earlier. I'm not sure if this is Travis that wants to make a comment, but I will unmute you for the time being. Mr. Knight?
No, I think we were just clapping at somebody. We're good.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much.
Uh-huh.
What?
I do not see any more hands. Again, there is a function in Zoom. I hope all of you have accessibility to that function. If you want to raise your hand, you have to click on the participants link. There's a hand. No. Mr. Johnson, I'm going to unmute you, but I believe you spoke already.
Yes, I did. There have been so many people cut off tonight.
Mr. Johnson, I apologize, but I made it very clear that we were going to stick to the 3-minute time limit, and if they got cut off, they got cut off. I'm sorry for that. Elizabeth Hugo. Ms. Hugo?
Okay, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, great. Elizabeth Hugo, 29797 East River Road, Grosse Ile. I do want to express my appreciation for allowing the neighbors of Trenton to voice their opinions tonight. And I really implore that you vote no on changes in the zoning. And I, again, echo all of the comments that were made previously in support of improved use of the property as opposed to going backwards to industrial use. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. I'm going to go down my list and make sure I'm not missing anyone. Ladies, see anybody? Okay, I don't see any hands. I'm gonna then ask for a motion to close the public hearing. Madam Clerk, I just want to make sure that the planning commissioners are unmuted so that they can make that motion. Planning commissioners, if you can unmute yourselves, I would ask you to do so. I'll try to find you in here.
And I would make a motion to close the public hearing.
I think that was Bill Jasmine, a motion by Bill Jasmine to close the public hearing. Is there support?
I'll support.
Support by Commissioner Earl. Madam Clerk, please take a roll. Yep, I just did.
Sorry, it kept saying the host won't let you unmute yourself.
I know. I'm
sorry about that.
I'm trying to find all of you in here. Warren,
I know.
Are you muted?
I'll mute myself. There we go. Blackledge?
Yes.
Boggs?
I'm muting him now.
Yes.
Castle?
Yes.
Ferrante?
I'm asking him
Ferrante? Oh, sorry.
Yes.
Frost?
I'm gonna let him unmute himself now too. All right. He should
Yes.
be good.
Frost? Thank you. Jasmine?
Yes.
Jax?
Yes.
Warner?
Yes.
Earl?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you all. With that, the public hearing is closed at 10:34 p.m. I do want to thank everyone for providing your comments tonight and your input. I do appreciate the passion that you have for the city of Trenton and the surrounding communities. So thank you. Thank you for your attention for 3.5 hours now, and thank you for your comments. We'll now move on to the next agenda item now that the hearing is closed, and it's a new business item for the Planning Commission, consideration of a zoning ordinance to replace the previous ordinance that was adopted February 20th, 2007. The proposed ordinance includes the creation of new zoning districts, new and updated definitions, permitted and special uses for districts, and new requirements and regulations for the city of Trenton. Zoning ordinance is designed to promote public health, safety, and general welfare to encourage the use of lands in accordance with their character and adaptability. In addition, a revised zoning map is also being proposed to reflect created and rezoned districts as proposed by the ordinance. With that being said, I'm going to ask Ben, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but Mr. Talarico, if you wouldn't mind, just kind of recapping briefly the proposed zoning that's in front of the PC tonight, how the committee, the zoning committee, got to the point where this was put in front of us, and where we go from here.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission, people still in the audience listening. The city put together a committee, and I was part of that, and we looked at the zoning of the whole city of various options. We discussed different things. We've morphed, we changed, we redirected. I do think it's important to note.
Hey Ben, it's tough to hear you right now. I don't know if you can.
Can you hear me better now?
Speak a little louder or move closer to the microphone.
Is it better now?
A little bit.
Hold on a second. Is this better?
Yes.
No. Okay, this is better?
Yes.
Okay. The committee was put together by the city. We met, we talked about different options. We spent a lot of time on the waterfront, spent a lot of time on the business districts, spent a lot of time on some of the major land uses. And we come up with what we generally agreed to, though we certainly had changes along the way, and we weren't all in agreement all the time on everything. I do think, though, it's important to note that the parcel in question tonight, that in everyone's mind, may have been zoned mixed use, but it's been industrial for 3/4 of a century. I don't know, I don't question Ms. Hardig at all, but from the knowledge the city has informed me, it's being cleaned up to non-residential standards. That's what it's being cleaned up to by the EPA. And I think it's important to note that just because Wayne County sold it to them on the condition it would be industrial is not the only thing. It's that the city council supported the sale of it being industrial. So we have a piece of property that's been industrial use for 75 years. It may have been zoned mixed use, but it's never used for mixed use because there's no viable plan that ever came forward that took off for mixed use. With opportunity year after year and no plan. So it continued on as an industrial site. And it was now confirmed to be sold and supported by council to be industrial. They moved forward with the cleanup as industrial. I think it's, at least from my professional opinion, it's hard to deviate from that. Certainly, if we had plans to do a mall today there on site, which would be an Amazon fulfillment center, I'm not so sure the Crown family wouldn't support that. But we haven't had any proposals at all. I do believe there's still active industrial uses. I refer to my former employee, DTE. That site is still active, so that's an active industrial site on the waterfront. So we came to this due to the realization that we can't just do what we want with everyone's property. We can make cases, and we can fight, and we can push for better development or more development that we want on individual properties. But in general, I think when something was sold with an agreement, supported by a council, always been used as industrial, and a large part of the waterfront is heavy industrial today of that site, and we're making it less intense. You know, I think it's good. I understand their concerns. I too am a property owner, and I live next to a retirement home for priests, and it became a boysville, and that's what happens when you live next to big property. And I didn't have an issue with that until they started to put convicted murderers in there, and it bordered my property, and we went and we, argued about what type of uses should be there. So I understand citizens' concern, and I think it makes for a better community to have the people tonight from all over voicing their concerns, because they are that's why we have a democracy. However, again, in this case, I just don't know how logically we could defend going against the county and the city council and the use of the property for the last 75 years. And for everybody who says, they're going to do this, that, we don't know what they're going to do. We told them what they cannot do. And we believe that's defensible. And some of the other stuff, we made special land use, so it's going to have a public hearing in front of this body tonight. There are some permitted uses, but keep in mind, on that waterfront right now, there are permitted uses that are much more detrimental to the environment than anything we're going to allow if this body recommends what the committee put forward. It wasn't just me, it was a committee. And then if city council supports that. Mr. Chair, I hope that answers what you had in mind.
Yes, thank you, Ben. That's very helpful. I think maybe I just, can I clarify one point, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there currently exists heavy industrial zoned property on that parcel right now, correct?
About half, yeah, not the whole depth of it to the street, but about half of the waterfront, the northeastern part of it is I-3 heavy industrial, which all those permitted uses by right are legal to put on there now.
Okay,
so that is
thank
correct.
You. Thank you. Any other questions for Ben? I'm gonna open it for discussion amongst the PC.
Mr. Chair, a quick question, clarification. Would that heavy industrial I-3 include logistics?
Oh, right now?
Yeah, that the property, the piece of that parcel that is I-3, could they use that for logistics, which is what a number of folks this evening talked about wanting on the property? They didn't want logistics. I guess where I'm going with this is, there is a chunk that certainly is mixed use, but if they could put logistics on the I-3 that already exists, if we don't change our zoning ordinance, then we can't. The question is, can we keep them from putting logistics on I-3?
I will, Mr. Chair, I will answer the commissioner's question if you'd like.
Yes, go ahead, Ben.
Right now, on that piece of property that takes up about half the waterfront, they could have heating and electrical generating plants, junkyards, commercial incineration or other forms of waste treatment, integrated steel manufacturing, ore storage, coking, related manufacturing of corrosive acid and alkali, cement, lime, gypsum, or plaster of Paris, petroleum or other inflammable liquids, production, refining, or storage, smelting of metallic ores or compounds such as copper, iron, or zinc, tire manufacturing, recycling centers or material recovery facilities, and any other use which may be determined by council to be of the same general character. Those are all permitted by right and do not need a public hearing today.
So getting back to my question then, do you feel that logistics would be an allowable use in that I-3?
Well, I think it certainly has the possibility to be any use determined by the Plan Commission that wouldn't be any more detrimental than the other uses already allowed. I believe it could be considered less intense. I haven't seen any plans, but yeah, I think it absolutely could.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Yes. I guess I'll add my 2 cents for what it's worth. And I empathize with everyone that provided their comments tonight. I truly do. And, you know, if I had my way, I would love to see that piece of property be anything but industrial. But realistically, and this might be the lawyer in me talking, but realistically, I am well aware that there's a purchase and development agreement between the current property owner and the county that very clearly says that the property was sold on the condition that it would be developed for industrial use. And that sale was supported by the Trenton City Council. And so this planning commission had no say in that process, had no vote. And so now we're stuck dealing with the situation that is less than ideal. But I don't want, in good conscience, I cannot ignore that that agreement that exists and stick the residents and taxpayers of the city of Trenton with a huge legal bill. Because that's who's going to be stuck with it, not the surrounding communities. The city of Trenton will. And so that's my feelings right now. I don't necessarily like it from a personal standpoint, but I'm trying to stay as objective as possible, and I'm trying to be realistic about the hand that we're dealt.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Another quick question for Mr. Tellerico. Would if we rezoned this entire piece as waterfront industrial, and somebody came forward, maybe the Maroons, with a plan for something that was less intensive, that might fit into a mixed-use development, would this new waterfront industrial zoning prohibit them from bringing a plan like that to us?
Mr. Chair, may I address that question?
Absolutely, Ben, go ahead.
Yeah, it certainly wouldn't prohibit anyone from bringing a plan. Whether it fits into the permitted or special uses would all depend. But generally, when you have less intense uses on the site, they tend to move forward through the process. It's when they're more intense that they're not allowed to go forward. So I don't know about everything, but I certainly think something less intense that would be beneficial, we would be able to have it approved.
And just a follow-up comment, easily the case with some of the other industrial properties like DTE and the Eastman property that Ms. Hardig pointed out in her comments. Those properties may attract developers that would be in a less intensive use of that property.
Yeah.
But it certainly wouldn't prohibit that by us limiting or making it less intensive than it is right now. It wouldn't prohibit a development like that coming.
Well, I've been your planner for 15 years. I've enjoyed my time in Trenton, the administration. You know, my recently passed wife lived in Trenton. It's a great community, and I think that we would welcome something like that, but not something I want to say, but it's important to note, in all my years in Trenton working, we've never had any proposal that has ever come forward for any of the industrial sites. We're very grateful to have the wildlife refuge, but we have nothing that's come forward. No cloud storage at the DTE site, no fulfillment center. And I think we'd all be glad if that does happen, Commissioner. We'd be glad to see something like that. But we have, in my tenure there, and I know most of your residents have been there longer, so forgive me, I'm not trying to act like I'm a lifelong person there, because I'm certainly not. I'm taking the community. But it'd be nice if we get some of those commissioners, some of those proposals that are more than just ideas. Somebody that actually has the economic wherewithal to move forward with that stuff.
Thank you very much, Ben.
Mr. Chair, I do have a question.
Commissioner Jasmine? Yes, go
Yes,
ahead.
I do have a question to direct to Ben. Ben, since you've been around this long, you remember how that originally got changed to mixed use, right?
I was not here, Commissioner, at the time. I've been informed by others of how it got changed. But it was before, right before I got here, I believe.
Okay. Well, then for everybody else who's on here who may not have been around the community as long as I have, it was originally changed to mixed use to try to build condos on that property. But the whole project fell apart because the developer wanted the city of Trenton to pick up the $20 million of what they thought it would take to clean up the site to a residential standard at the time, which now is about 125 million. So if you want to see your tax bill go up by 6 times, you could have mixed use on there. And I don't think that's appropriate for anybody.
Thank you, Bill. Any other questions, comments from the planning commissioners? You know, sometimes we get to make decisions that are very easy, and this is not one of those times. But ultimately, I think, number one, we need to keep in mind that we're only making a recommendation. Ultimately, the council is going to one that's going to have to decide whether to approve or amend or deny or something else with the zoning ordinance. You know, this zoning ordinance was presented to us by a committee made up of most of the city departments, taking all facts and circumstances into consideration. And I think you've heard from our professional planning consultant, our expert, that it's a workable, defensible, good document based on the circumstances that we're facing. And so I think if there's no other questions or comments, I think a motion would be in order to do one of two things. We recommend the council approve the proposed zoning ordinance, or we recommend that they deny or decline to approve it.
Mr. Chair, with that being said, if there's no further comments, I would like to make the motion. And the motion would be to move to recommend the approval of the zoning ordinance, inclusive of the text and the map, to the Trenton City Council.
I second.
Motion by Commissioner Ferranti to recommend approval of the proposed zoning ordinance and revised zoning map. That was supported by, help me out here, Commissioner Jasmine. We have a motion and support. I'm going to ask, is there any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, ask for the clerk to call the roll.
Blackledge,
I appreciate all the work that went into the industrial waterfront zoning, and but I feel like we're backed into a corner and doing damage control now, and I can't vote for that, so I'm a no.
Boggs,
I have to, after hearing all public comment and going over all the documentation, I am also a no.
Castle,
Yes.
Ferrante,
Yes.
Frost,
Yes.
Jasmine,
Yes.
Jax,
I also echo the no's. Hundreds of people cannot be wrong about this, and I feel like there's much more work to be done. So I also will not support this.
Warner?
I feel the same way. I know there's a lot of work went into this, but there's also a lot of concerns, so I am going to vote no.
Earl?
Yes.
Okay, with a vote of 5-4, motion carries.
Thank you all very much. I appreciate your time and effort and everything that we put into this. I know it wasn't an easy decision. It was not an easy decision for me. And ultimately, the council has the final say. So thank you very much. With that, I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion to adjourn.
Motion by Jasmine, support by
Frost.
Sorry. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Blackledge?
Yes.
Boggs?
Yes.
Castle?
Yes.
Yes.
Ferrante?
Yes.
Frost?
Yes.
Jasmine?
Yes.
Jax?
Yes.
Warner?
Yes.
Earl?
Yes.
Motion carries.
We are adjourned at 10:57 p.m. Thank you all again. Have a good
Aaron,
Yeah,
thanks
great.
for
Have a
running.
good night.
Good job running a challenging meeting. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great
Thank you.
job.
Good night.
Appreciate all
Thank
your
you.
effort.